Welcome back to the home studio, and welcome to episode 59, the triage edition of the Stevie Richards Show. My back is completely out. James can't hear out of one ear, and we're going to talk about WCW. Do those three things have anything to do with each other? Probably not, but welcome, James Romero, to episode 59.
What?
Steve.
Hey?
Huh?
Hey?
What?
Huh?
Ow!
I need to get my ear trumpet. I was boring everyone on the Patreon thing beforehand, saying that I had a chest infection for somehow it's migrated to one of my ears and I can't hear out of that ear now. And as Stevie rightly said, I'm not hearing in mono, my left ear is hearing in stereo, which is true.
That's a true nerd for you right there. And also, I actually reminded you, one of my favorite comments whenever I watch tech videos especially, is when someone doesn't do like dual mono from stereo and it only comes through like one headphone or one part of the speaker. I love the comment that says, man, my right ear really enjoyed all of this.
You want to nerd out then, right? I had a couple of podcasts over the years that did that where it only came through one speaker, so I went and edited it and then made a new audio version where it was mono in both ears, just because it annoyed me. Then I listened to it.
You want to hear something scarier?
Go on.
I've done that too.
Yay!
Yay! Aha! We start off early.
We are... I was going to say,
God,
Jeff
that
Jarrett's
hurt so
actually in
bad when I
WCW.
just did that. Oh my God.
Oh.
Ow. Ow.
Ow. That could be the T-shirt. By the way, at some point, we are going to have merchandise out again. So hold on with that. But I'm wondering if we can get away with, even if it's just a photo of you just doing that, and just aha.
I think we know my good friend Jeff Jarrett will want a cut of that.
Well, he can want as much of a cut as he wants. He ain't getting it. Right, we'll do the intro quickly. YouTube, fitness, Stevie Richards. I posted a couple of days ago, as we record this, a video that you'd done on the fitness channel, and it was basically the mental issues that you have with a major injury. And that's done quite well on your that video the last couple of days. And a lot of nice comments on that as well, talking about other people who've had, back issues or other serious injuries and sort of the battle to sort of overcome your own mind, I guess, into and forcing yourself back into usefulness, into being ambulant.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you putting that up. It shocked me that it got that much interaction even before the YouTube post, but those comments there and people going through the stuff that, man, you're not alone. I mean, that's the one thing. If you think that, like, I'm going through an injury, I'm going through a health issue, and I just feel like nobody understands or nobody really knows how I feel, you don't even have to watch the video. Look at the comments. We're up to like well over 100 comments right now of people in detail documenting their journey, the struggles, so maybe at least you won't feel alone, but at the same time, you might get some direction, because I was reading some of the comments on different treatments, holistic stuff, Eastern medicine, alternatives to just masking the pain. And if you watch our Patreon, I go off about how doctors in the medical system want to mask the pain with pills and medicine and painkillers, muscle relaxers, and I'm absolutely not going for any of that stuff. I mean, in moderation, but, I definitely want to stay away from all that stuff. So thank you to everybody for watching the video. Thank you, James, for posting it. And especially thank you for the comments.
Also, Stevie Richards cameo, once again, and I say this every single week, blowing up, as the kids say. It's a phrase I hate. But it's doing really, really well on Cameo. He's, always in the top 100 of all people in all subjects on Cameo, because he gives you your money's worth. And once again, I keep telling him to up the money. But once again, if you want a cameo from Stevie Richards, he goes above and beyond for everybody who signs up and who buys a cameo off him. And people are doing multiple cameos now, because that's how good he is and how sort of in-depth and interested, I guess, in the subjects and the people who write in and do the requests as well. So you will not be disappointed. Treat yourself to a cameo from Stevie Richards. And the last thing but not least, of course, is the Patreon. Patreon this week, the Monday upcoming, is going to be tying into this episode, and it relates to WCW. And in the cameo coming up this Monday, we watched Stevie's first match in WCW against Lenny Lane, and also the Clash of Champions. The Clash of Champions, the very final Clash of Champions that Stevie Richards is on against Raven. Raven and Stevie Richards kills another entrenched franchise of WCW with Clash of Champions. They couldn't have any more after that one.
Yeah, definitely. And you meant watch along. You're the key, like cameo on your mind, cross pollinating. That day you said cameo.
Oh, yeah,
but yeah, please go to cameo.com.
I was thinking the rapper cameo, or the.
You're thinking of Lenny Lane cameo, which was one of the matches that we did. I was from WCW Saturday Night, and then of course. That's probably why Raven and I never do a reunion, because if we reunite on any show, that is the last show that company will ever put on. So protect your promotion and never book Raven and I together, which may not be a problem anyway after this episode.
What was the watch along that came out this Monday?
Lenny Lane versus myself in WCW Saturday Night, as well as Raven versus myself.
No, that's next Monday. What was the previous one? Yeah.
Oh, the Sheep Herders and Jack Victory versus the Fantastics and Terry Taylor in the chicken wire, barbed wire, wood framed cage match from UWF. And not here on Patreon, but on Patreon, people actually knew the exact Philadelphia station, Channel 57, that I watched that particular episode on.
So were you watching UWF at that time?
I was. I started watching it. It seems like my first, like I talked about with NWA, my first kind of look at NWA was when Paul Jones and his army were beating up Jimmy Valiant in the ring, and there was run-ins, and it was like a hot finish, the no commentary or anything. This was the same exact thing. I caught the end of one UWF show where every episode they seemed to empty the locker rooms and everybody fought and bled, and we got to go. We're out of time. Tape machines are still going to be rolling.
So basically it was WCW that stole it like 10 years later with the NWO, because that's how like every Nitro ended for like a year.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say NWA did that a lot. NWA would do like the hot brawl at the end, or it would break down, and then in the next week they would do a cold open, no commentary, and then continue the storyline. So actually NWA and UWF, I would say NWA did it earlier than that, because even when they were doing stuff, say around the old TBS days, they still did those cliffhangers and then cold opens the next week.
With, I'm presuming Jim Crockett Promotions, you mean, by NWA?
Yeah, the original NWA, TBS Black Friday days where Vince took it over for a week or two, that kind of thing. Georgia Championship Wrestling used to do it as well. So it's like right around that period in the 80s.
Do you know how confusing it is that Georgia Championship Wrestling had a show called World Championship Wrestling? And then World Championship Wrestling was a show on Jim Crockett Promotions, I think, at some point for a while. And then it became World Championship Wrestling. Do you know how confusing that is for somebody who didn't live through it? It took me years to get like my head around like why WCW was a name before WCW was a company.
Well, what do you think? Do you think they just said, well, we use WCW here, now you're WCW. But do you think that's what it was? Well, this seems
of course it
seems to be a good name. Let's just go. We already own the trademark. Let's go. Let me ask you this before we get into this. I kind of wasn't really crazy about the conversion from NWA to WCW. I always thought NWA, like ECW, had that kind of underground, kind of like more of like, I guess, grungy feel to it, where I didn't want it to be a worldwide brand in name or presentation. I liked having, it was almost like our little secret type thing as a fan, like the NWA. Did you see this? But they changed it to WCW.
I was going to say I was 2. I didn't have an opinion.
Even then?
Going back in it though.
You didn't wake up, come out of your mother's womb with an opinion?
No, I mean, hey, just so you know, I was walking at 7 months. That's all I'm saying. I practically just walked out of the womb with an opinion. But there you go.
Wait, so you're walking at 7 months, so you're actually walking better at 7 months than I am at 53 years old.
I'm walking better than I am now as well, as I had to chase somebody out of my own garden. I didn't even say this on the Patreon, but yeah, I was just eating in my kitchen just about before we did the show. Just some dude just walked in my back garden, and apparently he was a delivery driver, but he was sniffing around like it looked like he was casing the joint. I was like, I left the door open, man.
Yeah, delivery drivers are always doing recon and taking their time. They don't rush deliveries to get to the next one. Yeah.
He walked to the back garden, right, without the parcel. Then he came and brought the parcel back.
Oh, man, that's a red flag.
Yeah, I know. It was a bit of a red flag. I'm going to have to release the Ring doorbell footage to catch a
Hey,
not predator,
hey,
but
let's make a
delivery
request
driver.
that never gets fulfilled. Hey, Chris, throw some B-roll in there.
It should do. He might listen to that, but I'm not going to make any notes. We'll see if he does something. Speaking of doing something, we need to get straight into this. We've got a few bits of news at the end. We've got Bret Hart stuff. We've got... What else have we got? Don't make me go to the end and look at what I just wrote. Karrion Kross and...
Are we going to talk about the Hulk Hogan drama?
Oh, of course, yeah. We're going to talk about TMZ. So, Steve, you watched it. I watched it. This morning, we both watched it. It aired yesterday evening in the States as we record this on a Tuesday, so I guess this clip will be out on Thursday, I think, to get the jump on it. But before then, we're going to be talking about Stevie Richards in WCW. Obviously, people remember you from, the BWO, Right to Censor, that kind of thing. I'm wondering, even if fans of this show, what percentage will know that you had a brief run in WCW?
That'd be a very interesting question for people to comment below if you even knew before watching this episode if I was even in WCW, the amazing era of Stevie Richards in WCW, the amazing 4 months. We're trying to figure out a title that's catchy, sarcastic, cynical, and humorous all at the same time. But I would say nobody has ever, like when you talk about all these things, even Dr. Stevie is brought up before the WCW 4 months there with Raven's Flock. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting trivia thing if you ask somebody who claims to be a true blood wrestling fan. Hey, did you know Stevie Richards was in WCW? You might get more no's than yeses.
I saw somebody, I don't know if it was Twitter or Reddit or wherever it was, that said, can you name a wrestler or a number of wrestlers who have been in ECW, WWF, WCW, TNA, and Ring of Honor? You're one of the few. I looked at Shane Douglas. He has been on one Ring of Honor show, but it was like a combined show with a Japanese company or something like that. No, sorry, an indie company. And he was working for the indie company, so don't count Shane. I think Jerry Lynn has.
There is one more. Raven.
And Raven was the other
Raven,
one, of course.
So once again, and those promotions to some extent survived us being there. We were never there at the same time. Well, WCW, but rest in peace.
And WWE.
That's true. Well, rest in peace, TKO now.
And TNA.
Rest in
You're
peace.
only
And then
not
they
with
came
Raven
back and
and
got
Ring of Honor.
resurrected. We got to figure out. We got to do some mental gymnastics, but eventually we will kill every company.
Speaking of long missed companies, we're going to get back to ECW and then the WCW jump. So to refresh everybody, are we talking May of 1997? The neck injury. Terry Funk drops a guardrail on the back of your neck, which hastens sort of your leaving ECW and then sort of your career being up in the air. I don't know if your career was up in the air or what you were going to do was up in the air, because obviously you weren't going to wrestle originally when you went to WCW.
It was May 10th, 1997, May 10th, 1997. The Burt Flickinger Center in Buffalo, New York had really veered what I thought I was on a certain path of my career, and it took a really nasty left turn courtesy of a guardrail.
Did you wrestle in ECW after Terry Funk? I mean, I know you wrestled in November to Remember a little later, but that's for a future episode, and it is for a future episode. We're going to refer to it. But did you wrestle after the guardrail injury?
I believe I did one thing, maybe one match, but then I had to back out of a title match against Terry in June, which I believe that night was supposed to be, I lost to Terry, and then Shane Douglas cut the promo with the TV title Open Challenge. I was supposed to answer that and win the TV title from Shane. That was Taz's spot, as it turned out, because I couldn't compete with the neck injury against Terry Funk. So I was supposed to win the TV title that night.
With that being said, I read in a newsletter at the time that it was reported in June of 1997 that you were in a match with the Eliminators and you blacked out during the bout. Is that true or false?
Yes, Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Perry Saturn hit me with a kick that knocked me out cold, and I give credit to Raven because Perry wanted to keep going because he gets, one day this guy's going to have some really crappy takes on his show, and I need to end it now. He was a time traveler, came into the 2025s, had to go back and try to finish me off before I had gotten everything wrong. Another Perry Saturn joke. But yeah, but Perry hit me with a kick, accidentally knocked me out cold, didn't realize it, and Raven protected me. Raven jumped in the ring and was trying to keep him away and pulled me to the corner, and we ended up finishing the match. That was probably the match that kind of reset off the neck injury and everything. And, you know, like, he didn't make it worse, but I didn't really truly know how bad it was until even after that.
Yeah, so that was the last match you had in ECW in that run. You would have 3 more in December after you leave ECW once again.
Was it Hazleton,
WCW.
PA? Was I correct?
Yeah, Hazleton, Pennsylvania, St. Joe's High School. That was your last match of the original run in ECW, Eliminators versus Raven and Stevie Richards. When did you say you got the neck injury again? What day?
The Buffalo. Well, the week before, Sandman had caned me right in the back of the neck, and I got a stinger from that. Totally unrelated. That seemed to work itself out. Then May 10th, actually, was it the night before or the week before? Because Syracuse was where it happened with Hack, with Sandman. Then Buffalo was when, it might have been the next night for all I know. May 10th, that Saturday night, the 4-way dance or 4-way match, Raven, myself, Sandman, Terry Funk. I had just covered Sandman after the Stevie kick. That's when Terry dropped the guardrail. And like I said before, if I wasn't there, those legs would have impaled Sandman as well because he was really ugly. So, yeah, that was it, the elimination right from there. And then Terry's pin on me was the actual finish of the match.
Okay, so you actually wrestled quite a few matches after the neck injury, so I'm going to give it you here. So on the 10th of May, which you were referring to before, that was at the ECW Arena. Terry Funk, Raven, Stevie Richards, Sandman, so that'll be where you got caned in the neck.
That was Buffalo, not the ECW Arena.
Well, the next week is Buffalo. That's 17th of May. Terry Funk, Raven, Stevie Richards, Sandman.
That was the one then, 17th, I'm sorry, not May 10th.
Yeah. On the same card, Raven, Stevie Richards defeats Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer, and then you have 3 singles matches before the Eliminators tag match, and that is Shane Douglas for the TV title.
Downingtown, Pennsylvania, I think.
Indiana, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
That's at the Ice and Expo Center. The next day on the 24th, Monaco, Pennsylvania, you wrestle in a singles match Terry Funk for the ECW heavyweight title. And then the day after that, West Liberty, West Virginia, you wrestle Johnny Polo.
That match is going to be a story within itself. That match I remember vividly. But the Shane match, I remember that was an ice rink. It was freezing that night. And the one with Alex, I'll back up and talk about what you just described in Buffalo was we were doing TV tapings, multiple ones. So that tag match ended with me pinning Terry in that tag match. Then we did the 4-way for another week of TV, which, by the way, I felt fine after the tag match. It wasn't like my neck was on its way to that. The guardrail was really a sudden thing of trauma. It wasn't building to where if Terry dropped the guardrail on my neck, I would have been fine if it wasn't for all the other matches. But, man, I thought I look back at some of this stuff and I'm like, even with my back feeling the way it is now, especially, I'm like, how did I wrestle those matches week in and week out? Because I know I was in a lot of pain. And the only thing I can think of was 2 things. Number one, no particular order. I didn't want to lose my spot, which is every wrestler. And we only got paid when we worked. Fair enough, right? So, and I still worked I didn't work in the office then, Carver W. Reed. We were working so much that I ended up kind of stopping that and just wrestling full time.
So how do you get into contact with WCW? Now, a couple of these things I think we've addressed on previous shows, but because this is an all-encompassing thing and probably, I guess the majority of people who watch these shows have missed it or even just like to hear it again. What's the story with WCW getting in touch, or did you get in touch with WCW?
It was all done through Raven. Raven was already going to WCW at this point. So I don't know exactly what the date was that was decided, but you could see I'm starting to go over these matches. Raven's starting to peel back a little bit in these tag matches, multi-person, stuff like that. Paulie is obviously setting me up not to become world champion, but you just saw put over Terry and then go right into a TV title run. So Paul was booking me according to how he was trying to invest in me. So, and we're going to get a theme about being young and being irrational and making these irrational decisions or emotional based decisions. So the conversation was really Raven talking to Bischoff, talking to Terry Taylor, talking to me, engaging me. No, he wasn't trying to recruit me to go, but he knew my neck was hurt. He knew that I could make more money there. He knew they would probably take care of my surgery, eventually what I would need it. His intentions obviously were, let's get the act back together again, and then I can get over it. You can take my, I mean, there was definitely a self-serving, self-preservation aspect to it, but also he was doing me, he could have had anybody put in that spot, but he knew that I would be the best person to start the act over again. So it was mainly Raven doing all the middleman stuff, communicating with Bischoff, Terry Taylor. Did I know what was being said was true? No. But it turned out that I got a deal with WCW and ended up going there in July. So Raven was the point man for that. Was he? He wasn't the mole, by the way. I know people are going to say, was he the mole? No, he was just somebody trying to politic for his act to kind of go in a complete form into WCW.
Very briefly, was there even a mole? Or was that an invention of Heyman?
I mean, there's people always talking and always trying to get people and recruit. And obviously Bischoff was trying to get ECW talent in the WCW and get new talent in there. Was there an official mole? No, but there was always rumblings like, what would it be like to go to WWF? What would it be like to go to WCW? What's the money there? If you know anybody, you're going to ask them, what's it like there? So everybody was kind of their own mole, if you think about it.
Who was the first official in WCW you actually spoke with?
That I spoke with?
Yeah.
I can't, if I spoke with anybody, it was Terry Taylor briefly, but not from the level that we became closer as we worked together in WCW and then WWF. So Terry and I were I met Terry on the first Eastern Championship Wrestling show in Michael Jack's Sports Bar in Philly, where Steve Richards debuted against Jimmy Jannetty and had no business as being a part of a 20-minute draw with no matches under my belt. Jannetty just beat me up for 20 minutes. But I met Terry that night, and I think I met him on the next Eastern Championship Wrestling, kind of not TV taping, but show. And that was the exposure I had in the interaction with Terry. So we didn't know each other like we knew each other later on in my career and life. I would say 99% outside of Terry maybe saying, where do we mail the contract? What's your address? It was all Raven relaying information back and forth. So it was a big trust. Yeah, big trust thing. I could have basically went there and they could have went, well, who are you?
So how did they go about with the neck injury then? So, I mean, did you let them know in advance that you're injured, or you can still be useful, but you can't do certain things?
Yeah, I mean, I let them know, but I wasn't quite sure how to gauge it. Besides being immature, being young, not knowing anything about what a neck injury even, I had never had a major injury to my posterior chain, my spine, or anything like that. So I told them I was hurt. And I think at that point, WCW was just like, don't worry about it. Come in. We got Turner money. And they kind of said that when I was there. We'll take care of your surgery if you ever need it. We got physical therapy. It seemed like it was a nice upgrade as far as medical, like benefits, trying to take care of the talent, lower schedule. No, like basically WCW was a television company at this point. There weren't really many house shows. They did the worldwide tapings 4 months in advance. And the way the gimmick was presented to Raven as he presented it to me was, we're going to be sitting in a crowd for weeks or months. Your neck can heal. And that was kind of true. I wrestled a little bit quicker than that, but we were in the crowd for a good, 2 to 4 weeks before I had a match?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you were signed in July and then the first match was in like the 8th of August, maybe?
Yeah, and I debuted on July 7th on Nitro, and a month later. And that month really bought me some time. Of course, when I started bumping again, I was like, oh, a neck injury doesn't heal in a month.
12th of August, I'm sorry, as well. But yeah, I think you were there for a month before you actually wrestled. Let's talk about Eric Bischoff. So did you ever have a sit-down meeting with Eric?
No, no. The only meeting I had with Eric, which was unofficial, was when we were in Daytona Beach, and it might have been for the debut. I don't know if our debut July 7th was Daytona Beach, but I remember the beach bar where Raven was going down to pitch stuff to Bischoff. And I told this story before. It was like a tiki hut type of bar right there on the beach outside the hotel. And he started saying, "You remind me a lot of Shawn Michaels. I can do something with you." And he started talking a little bit. And then him and Raven went back to kind of pitching Raven stuff. And that was about it. But really, outside of Alone, Goodbye, and you know what it was like in WCW. These were like, how should I say it? These were like the really golden years where everybody got along, everybody was making money, the politics were there, but everybody was having fun, making money, working a lighter schedule. And then towards the end of my era in WCW, my run, it started to creep up little by little. Now, we didn't see Bischoff because Bischoff, I don't know if he did when I was there during the 4 months, but famously people claim Bischoff wouldn't get to the TV till like anywhere between 7 to 8 p.m. So I wouldn't see him when we got there at 1 o'clock, had to go through, get our matches, walk through stuff, things like that. And of course, he was with Hogan. Hogan wasn't showing up at 1. So we didn't really, but to me, I was there. Locker room was very relaxed. Everything seemed good. People making money, people not really banged up too much, and everybody seemed to get along.
Well, I was going to say first impressions of Eric as a boss. I mean, I guess good because he paid you a compliment and then you just barely ever saw him.
Yeah, there's a thing in wrestling too, kind of like with Vince in the Corral position. If they're not saying anything to you, that's a really, really good thing.
Well, who did you consider your boss then? Or somebody higher up that you could talk to? Would it be Terry or Kevin Sullivan?
Yeah, I had a little bit more interaction with Terry Taylor. I had a little bit of interaction with Kevin Sullivan. I told the story sitting in a hotel and him telling some stories and giving some of his, I was picking his brain. He was passing along knowledge and I was there to listen. Terry was the office person, I think, that had more to do with guys like me than an Eric or Kevin Sullivan or anybody like that. Raven would be the one to talk to Bischoff, to talk to Kevin, to talk to booking committee because he was figured in. I was the spillover where Raven would say, "This is what we're doing."
Were you aware of any issues between Kevin Sullivan and Terry Taylor as far as like a power struggle at this point? Because I believe Kevin was ousted at one point in '97 and then returns to the booking committee, but that was like some issue with Kevin Nash or the NWO, I guess, at that point. But was that anything you were privy to at the time?
No, I didn't do this. Excuse me. I was not privy to this. This is very much a honeymoon period, which ended during the honeymoon period as well. So I was not aware of that, but I was aware through the grapevine and other people talking about this hot potato with WCW booking. You know about that Dusty, Flair, Kevin Sullivan, Terry, Bischoff, all these people, and then the committees, and then they break up in one person. So I was kind of aware of that, but I wasn't given any indication of like chaos, of like, well, today Terry's the booker, he told you to do this, but tomorrow Kevin's the booker, and it's a complete 180. There was none of that when I was there.
We are going to talk about contracts again in a second, do bear with. How quick was it from signing the deal to debuting on television?
It was, June was when I really decided. Then we signed quick, Raven was already signed is my assumption. Then I signed my deal like pretty much maybe the day before I flew out on July 7th and then debuted on Nitro. I don't know if it was exactly 24 hours before, but it was something that wasn't given to me, say, in June. It was somewhere in the beginning of July, and it kind of moved really fast from there. Because quite honestly, I didn't believe it was real. You remember, there was still that paranoia of, is this a rib? Is Raven playing a joke on me? Or is this Raven saying, just come there, I go there, and they say, well, okay, we'll pay you like 25 grand a year or whatever. You know what I mean? I didn't know what to expect until that FedEx came in the mail.
Okay, well, it's very rude to ask about money, so here goes. How much was the deal worth and how many years?
2 years, $85,000 a year to start. to start. And it was a standard 2, which was weird because I had heard 3s and 5s, from WWF and other stuff like that. But I also heard WWF was only given 75 when I had the meeting with Bruce. So I'm getting 10 more a year for less dates. And 2 years, what I looked at is if I can get myself over in the next 2 years, that's going to lead to more money. And that's what they even said. We got Time Warner money, Turner money. You're going to get a raise probably before that 2 years is even up. Hey, don't worry, you'll make more. He wasn't there yet.
How many dates do you remember?
No dates, no minimum amount of dates that I can recall. There was no minimum dates because strictly it was a TV company at the time. So I think you were just supposed to come to TV at pay-per-views. There was no Thunder until right at the very end of right before I left. They were talking about Thunder and adding that on and giving people raises according to the second TV.
I'm going to give Meltzer his due here. He posted exactly $85,000. I mean, at this point in the 90s, like in the 2000s maybe, like these newsletters were a lot more accurate, I guess, than they are now, where they're far more of a closed shop, so there's a lot more guesswork going involved. But yeah, $85,000 is what was written.
Well, because it's a pretty standard contract, you can easily guess during that time with WWF, if there is a guarantee, they only give opportunities, pal, but they were giving out guarantees. If you're coming in, they just want to see what you're about. It's kind of like a tryout 3-year contract. It's going to be 75. For some reason with WWE, that 75 back then was we can sit them at home and not worry about it. Or if we don't get our investment back, 75 over 1 to 3 years is no big deal. WCW, a lot of guys had that 2-year 85,000. I don't know why.
The Observer also claimed that WCW officials wouldn't be letting you wrestle for several months due to the neck injury, but then you start wrestling in a month. So what changed? What turned from several months to 1 month?
I believe, and I wasn't privy to them saying, they never told me. They knew I had the injury. They said, don't worry, you're not going to be wrestling a full schedule. Maybe that's how they got around it. Well, this dude's only going to work 1 day a week. What's the big deal? So with that being said, with that part of it that I just kind of presume, the other thing is my position with Raven almost warranted that I needed to be the roadblock, the obstacle, the physicality needed to be brought out on me because nobody could touch. Raven needed to be protected. The analogy I use is to write the censor. How many weeks and months did nobody even touch me? I just got more and more heat until somebody got their hands on me. Raven's the same thing. Besides the fact, you're looking at me and you're like, oh, this is easy. A chicken what heel. A very weak heel. A guy who begs off. He's very visual. He's fun. He's over the top. We know how to book that. We know this guy can get heat. He can put people over. The Raven character, we might need a few weeks to figure out where this is going to fit. Let's just get him. Let's just take him from ECW, and then let's figure it out. My thing was easier to book matches, finishes, protect Raven. I could be protected just by talking. So I think that's why it kind of got accelerated up. Plus, going back to the first point, they're just thinking, limited reps, his neck will take it. And if he gets hurt to a point, then we can just get him the surgery and send him at home, or even send him in the crowd. My speculation, nobody ever told me that, but looking back on hindsight, that's what I can assume.
Well, so, okay, let's say you're presuming you're going to get 3 or 4 months off, and then they say, right, you're up on the Clash of Champions. Or, sorry, even early. Right, you're up against Lenny Lane at Saturday night. Did your heart sink, or did you sort of assume that your neck would have healed up enough?
Stupidly, I probably thought my neck was healed enough. I had no way to know how these herniated discs or everything that was pinching a nerve or the sciatica or, the atrophy that started, like the Paul Orndorff type thing. I was like, I didn't have big arms to begin with, but I was like, oh, this is starting to get scary. So over that course of those months of taking bumps, I probably went from 1 level to 2 levels with a slightly broken bone. So those bumps were starting to take a toll over those months. But in the beginning, it was just, Well, I just need to get back in ring shape. I need to get my spine conditioned again. Lots and lots of false positives that I put in my mind.
So we're going to move on now. And this is more relating as well to leaving ECW as well. Paul Heyman, he had apparently threatened, he didn't actually sue, best I know, but he had threatened WCW with a lawsuit over WCW's use of you as Stevie Richards and Scott Levy as Raven. Those two characters in particular. Just before we get to the lawsuit itself and how much you knew about it at the time and later on, I guess, was Paul really upset when you left, and was Paul really upset when Raven left? Or did he sort of get it?
I would kind of say he expected eventually Raven would leave. That's a guy that's just so over with a great mind. He's going to get poached one way or another sooner or later from one of these companies. He deserves to. He deserves to make multi-generational wealth. And I think personally, it hurt Paul more that I left and really made him mad that I left, and deservedly so. I've said many, many times when we do our interview, when we bring this up, he should have been mad at me. I did not understand back then the true scope or the gravitas of the investment in money and TV time, what a push really meant, the opportunity, where I was and where he wanted to take me. Now, the neck injury and all that stuff, you could say, well, you were hurt, you wanted to make money. I still did not do business good. I did not do proper business and put people over and return the favor. Now, physically would have been, that's the part that's the gray area. But take that out. I didn't put over Guido. I didn't put over Shane. I didn't put over other people that I should have put over on the way out to leave the place better than I found it, kind of. So for Paul to take it personally, when he really did, Paul took a very, very hands-on approach to producing me, to bringing out my character, making me comfortable, making me calm, making me less nervous. He was one of the best motivators when it came to that. I would have never turned into the character nor the worker I am today without people like Paul Heyman. So he should have been pissed. And you know what? I don't blame him if he tried to sue.
You're sort of leaving out the contract of sorts he offered you, though.
Yeah, but
which I think is very important.
That started the bad tension between us. Not bad blood, but really bad tension, unspoken tension. And that was...
Do explain for everybody, because there is a video out there on the YouTube where you go more in depth, but the contract situation between Stevie and Paul Heyman a few months before you left, you have to explain for people who don't.
Okay, we were outside Downtown's farm town. If I get it wrong, there was lots of farmers markets in PA. I know it was inaccurate, but we were outside a building in Pennsylvania. We were somewhere on the planet Earth during nighttime. So he said, I want to keep you. I want to retain you. I want you to be the future. He was giving me all the stuff that his actions had backed up his words. He was not lying about that. Paul had booked me very, very strong. Let's not twist it any different way. So he put a piece of paper that, in front of me, and it was for blank amount of money and blank amount of years. And he wanted me to sign the contract. And I kept saying, there's nothing here. And he was, well, just sign it. We'll fill it out later. No, Paul, there's nothing here. And that's when he started the big eye, bug eye thing, or are you calling me a liar? Or don't you trust me? He said, don't you trust me? I said, but Paul, there's nothing here. And after that moment, and maybe that was the part where I was like, this is the beginning of the end. Maybe I should get out before I get buried. But that shouldn't have mattered, because I should have still been more professional, more mature, and did better business, if not for Paul, for the guys that put me over that didn't have to.
So, yours and Raven's contracts stipulate, because of how you both left ECW on short notice, that neither of you were allowed to appear on WCW pay-per-views for 6 months, which would mean practically the end of the year. Any truth to that?
Well, I never signed a contract with Paul.
With WCW, I'm sorry.
But the WCW contract said we weren't supposed to be on pay-per-view for 6 months?
supposedly both you and Raven, as an agreement with WCW and ECW that neither of you could be on pay-per-view for 6 months as part of the no-compete. Which is funny because you both ended up on, was it Bash at the Beach?
Yeah, in July. But we weren't wrestling. We were in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've never read that. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I played a doctor on TV once, but I don't remember that. If I would have remembered something like that because I would have remembered WCW probably maybe giving me a little bit of heat about that, or both of us. Like, even though they were the ones that wanted to bring us in without any notice, you know how wrestling is. Like, how could you put us in this position? What, you mean the one that you contacted us first to do and start accelerating? But yeah, I mean, Paul, this is the thing with Paul. Paul and WCW have had this lawsuit relationship for many years at this point. How many times did Paul threaten or sue, or even back in, was it early Extreme or was it Eastern, where there was a lawsuit and Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson had to show up. They had a talent exchange. You had Kevin Sullivan. Then later on, Steve Austin. You had all these different, Mick Foley. Mick Foley.
Well, Steve Austin was fired.
He was fired, but Mick
was
Foley,
part, yeah.
Kevin Sullivan. There was lots of guys that did exchanges with WCW. Mostly ECW got lent talent from WCW, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So there had to be some kind of litigation. All right, we're going to settle by sending you talent.
Paul Heyman looked to be filing a lawsuit against WCW because you obviously, as I said before, both appeared at the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view Daytona Beach, July 13th, 1997. Paul Heyman would announce the news publicly his intentions to sue via the ECW hotline. Did this lawsuit, I suspect this lawsuit never happened, but did you get any legal papers sent to you, or were you aware of his intention to sue WCW over you?
No, but I definitely was worried about the trademark. About my name and how we were going to get around that. Much like WWE owns Stevie Richards, but this is part of an addendum in my contract, the last one I signed with WWE, where I own Stevie Richards. Now, I could very easily have gone back to Steve because Steve was the name I had since 91. These are people like suing over the letter I. That was the joke for many years. The letter I is the most expensive letter in the alphabet. But it never happened. I think Paul, in the end, like, who knows what he was thinking or feeling? Maybe it just wasn't worth the time. But with the Raven stuff, I think the Raven one was something like, let's settle for money or settle for a barter deal or whatever, because Raven did give enough notice. And this was 2 to 3 months that I knew that Raven was going, like almost like right around or maybe after Barely Legal, I knew Raven was gone. He was on his way out. He was talking to Paige. He was talking to Kevin Sullivan, probably talking to Terry Taylor and Bischoff. He was actively, and let's not forget Kevin Nash. He was friends with Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. So he was having all different conversations, even months before probably he decided to go.
Most assuredly so, but Raven he wrestled for ECW longer than you did. So he was actually wrestling for ECW a week after your last match with the Eliminators. Because obviously you and Raven tagged with the Eliminators. That was your last match in ECW at that time. Then Raven would go on to wrestle the Sandman in a dog collar match, and then he would lose the famous Loser Leaves Town match with Tommy Dreamer, where Tommy Dreamer finally gets his win over Raven. So that was that was on the 7th of June, 1997. And then he was appearing on WCW TV within couple of weeks.
Yeah, but what Raven did was he put those guys over on the way out. That's the difference between Raven and myself. He went out the right way and did business the right way, which if Paul's still going to sue for the Raven name after all that, that's really not cool.
With the lawsuit then, I mean, you said before you were Steve Richards. I mean, you were in Eastern Championship Wrestling before Paul Heyman had anything to do with it. You created that name from your first match onwards, or, you know, derivatations. What's the word?
Derivative. Yeah.
Derivatives of, yeah. Whereas Raven's a more interesting one because he said that he created the character with a bit of help with Diamond Dallas Page, but that debuted in ECW.
It's very murky. It doesn't matter when it was created, and if you're going to create it, you trademark it. And I believe Raven did trademark it. So he had a trademark lawyer that I was going to pursue. But at the time, that was so expensive. There was no legal Zoom or anything like that. We were talking about thousands upon thousands of dollars that I did not have to do that. So I was kind of like in the back of my mind, and this is where Raven had taught me to be a worker this way. Let's figure out a way if I got to lose this name. Do I go back to being Steve? How does Raven rename me to something else? Do you see what I mean? Let's figure out a way to make this intentional rather than, we got to do this.
WCW, why do you think that WCW would have more likely respected WWF no-compete clauses, but not ECW no-compete clauses?
Well, basically because WWF had an entire floor of lawyers under retainer and ECW did not. Although Paul's father was a lawyer and Paul's father knew many lawyers, there was still a lot of connections with that, but you didn't have Jerry McDevitt and just a team of lawyers that were all being paid a salary by WWE.
So we're going to be talking about now you actually getting to WCW, and then there's I don't know whether to leave this for the Raven feud section or whatnot, but okay, you go back. Why are you dancing Stevie? Because I said this on a previous episode, because obviously, since we work together very frequently now, constantly, that I know your career very well. Why a regression? Because you were Big Stevie Cool, and once again, you said just before you were heading for the TV title. You were supposed to win it. The injury happens, unfortunately, when you don't win it, but you were in line for, as they say, a push in the business in ECW. And then you go to WCW, and then you're the character you played in 95 and 96.
Well, I'm going to give a hot take on the TV title situation. It was a smart decision for them not to put the TV title on me because I didn't deserve it. I wasn't mature enough. That would have been another thing that I would have to turn heel because I would have been exposed as not being a strong enough babyface to stand on my own. It eventually would have exposed me for being green and inexperienced and not really knowing how to carry that belt. So for just a microcosm of this whole thing, it was great that Taz got it. And look at what Taz became off of winning the TV title. He carried it. I could not have done that at that point. And then we try to be honest and transparent. There's no way. The TV title would have meant less if I won it. And guess what? I would have meant less if I won it. It would have been a failure, an abject failure on both sides. This is the funny part because we're going to go back to the first question. I became Dancing Stevie and became a lackey again and redid the origins of the pair because of the neck injury. I needed to buy myself time and was under the assumption that I would just be doing maybe one bump here and there to protect Raven or being the obstacle to get in the way, to cut promos for weeks, if not months, to get Raven a ton of heat till they got their hands on me. And that got slightly accelerated. So yeah, I looked at that and it felt at the time a little bit like a bait and switch. But by the way, this was the best spot for me in this shark infested tank with Hogan, Nash, Hall, everybody. I was not mature enough to handle that. So in a way, if they brought me in as a character to, how should I say, call and collaborate on matches, I probably would have got a ton of heat because I didn't know how to politically communicate to other talents that are on the roster. Make sense?
Yeah. Why did you not go in as the same thing you were doing in ECW then? Why could you not be Big Stevie Cool? Maybe that was a trademark issue, I don't know at the time. But why couldn't you be Big Stevie Cool or some variation of that going to WCW? Was it just purely because you're going to be associated with Raven? Because we'll talk about this in a second. Raven didn't want the rehash either. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But why couldn't you be BWO Stevie?
Well, one of two parts. Number one, obviously the easiest thing to put me with redo Raven and Richards. Number two, there was this little group that people might not remember called the NWO. That might have been a little too. Now, there was a second part of me that was like, if they see me, because I knew Raven and I weren't going to get along. That was already, I knew it. I knew it because we weren't getting along in ECW. So what's going to change in WCW? As much as I would try maybe to make it work on a personal level, two different people, two different places, whatever it might be. I was hoping in a way that Nash and Hall and everybody would want me to be like their lackey and be big Stevie Cole and then try to do other things like that. That was kind of like the thing in my back pocket. Never happened, but maybe I can just attach myself after the Raven thing runs its course to those guys.
Do you know what's funny is the person who did that was only a couple of months there after you left, and Louis Spicoli. He ended up doing that for Scott Hall.
And he did a great job. Louis was very entertaining.
Okay, so the reason I said why weren't you BWO and WCW, well, obviously the NWO's there, I understand that, but then in 98 you have the Wolfpack and the B Team, and then the LWO, and then you have all these NWO parodies or derivatives once again, which is why I was thinking, did WCW have any interest in the BWO at that time?
No, they never mentioned one word to me. That, Nash and Hall would say their funny little things to me, which was harmless. We'll talk about the initial like prank, which is in good spirit. I mean, it was really funny at the end. But I want anybody, by the way, if some dude 7 feet is staring down you with a scowl on his face, I want you guys bow up on that guy and see what happens. But it was a blessing in disguise, because guess what ended up happening? In 2025, people still have nothing but a positive memory of the BWO and the core 3 members, myself, Nova, and Meanie. It would have been really, really watered down, and I believe it would have, like you just mentioned, the LWO and the Wolfpack and all the other ones, and it's like just a gimmick. But ours is strictly a parody that actually somehow still stands on its own. So it really would have hurt, to use a word that's maybe a little too strong for a parody, it really would have hurt the legacy of the BWO.
Okay, so I said on our previous episode, the one last week where it was Ask Stevie Anything, and I said, and I've said this in other ones as well, if you put in a question, and I think it's going to fit into a future topic like this, we'll include it, and we've got quite a few questions for WCW Part 1, 2, and if we get there, Part 3 as well. Mr. Not Funny 069 writes in and says, when you joined WCW, was there any heat between you and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash? And then I add maybe Hulk Hogan and Sean Waltman, who was 6 at the time, for being a parody of the NWO. So can you tell us the reactions of all 4 of those guys as to what they thought about the Blue World Order, parodying them and maybe making a little bit of money off the NWO name?
Okay, I'll go backwards. I'll go with the people that I have absolutely no clue and never mentioned or never sold it, and that would be Hogan and Sean. To this day, Sean, I've run into him a few times on Indie Show years ago, never made mention of anything, like never even a funny way, oh, everybody, big Stevie Cole's in the locker room or whatever. He's taking, there was never anything like that. Scott Hall, of course, likes to press buttons and do whatever. So all day, and I'm sure him and Kev kind of like coordinated this. These are the kind of ribs I appreciate. There's no harm, no foul, not putting bags on pipes 20 feet in the air or pooping in bags or whatever it is. This is the kind of stuff that's just a little fun hazing that didn't really hurt anybody. Scare me a little bit? Yeah. Who knew what would happen? Because I never met these guys, by the way. Never met them, never talked to them. And Scott Hall, the entire first day I was there, was like, dude, Kev's looking for you. Kev's looking for you. I would just do your thing and leave as quickly as possible. And Scott knew where my rental car was. So all day. And Kevin, I didn't even see, because I was like, if I see him, maybe I can talk to him and reason with him and say it wasn't me, it was Paul and it was a parody or whatever. Kevin, he might not have been avoiding me, but if he was, he put a lot of effort into it to make me sweat it. Scott I'm talking 20 times all day. Scott was finding me. Dude, hey bro, I'm telling you, better hide. So right before I got to my rental car, at the end of the night, after the show, and this is at nighttime, but they have the spotlights from the satellite truck. So there's like a beam of light kind of on my car, and I'm trying to open the door, and there's a big shadow that comes up over the roof of the car in my head. And I'm like, oh no. It's like that old thing where you reach back to feel how big the guy is behind you. I turn around and he goes, well, big Stevie Cool, we meet at last. And he's literally looking down at me. I was like, Kev, I go, man, I'm just letting you know it was all out of respect and everything. He goes, oh, was it? You really think so? You think you can talk your way out of this, big Stevie Cole? He was leaning in on me, and I'm just like, oh my God. I was like, my first night here, I'm going to get fired and I'm going to get beat up because I'm in a fight. I'm going to get in a fight that I'm going to lose, and I'm going to get fired for being in a fight that I have no chance of winning. This is great. And I can't go back to these, your entire wrestling life is flashing before your eyes. Like, I can't go back to ECW. That's whatever. And then Kev kind of like, okay, I'll be seeing you around. And he kind of hit my arm or my shoulder as hard as he could, or very lightly. And he's just that strong, which is even more terrifying. So then he walks to his rental car and then gets in it. And he goes, hey, big Stevie Cole, come here. And I walk over, and it feels like the Green Mile, walking death row. I walk up to him. I go, yeah. I go, Kev, I'm so sorry. He goes, stop. I'm just messing with you. And dude, I exhaled so much, I felt like my body became like a puddle. When your bones leave your body, you're so much more relaxed. And I almost felt like hugging him. I was like, thank you. He goes, we're still gonna F with you every chance we get, in public about this. Just take it in good fun and go, trust me, I did. And it was done out of respect. I was like, I can tell you the truth, it's pretty entertaining. And he drove off. That was it. Hogan never said anything. Shawn never said anything. Scott still said, dude, he's still pissed. He's just trying to be nice. Yeah. So, and I appreciated that. So it was, and we even did, Scott and I did a thing for Wildcat Sports. It's on YouTube, where I was the Wildcat Sports like Revolution or heavyweight champion, and I had the BWO shirt on. He had the NWO. We're looking at the shirts, looking down, looking up, and then just kind of started laughing about it. So it was kind of all in good fun.
Did you know if they actually watched you in ECW or just heard about you?
I think some of them watched me because dating back before that, we were also nervous because we heard stories about William Regal, Steve Regal at the time. And when we did the Blue Meanie Bloods, Meanie had reached out or somehow contacted him or had some communication, and he was nervous. Oh my God, is this? Because back then, people did take their gimmicks seriously. It was their moneymaker, and they really wanted to protect their gimmick at all costs. But Regal loved it. He thought it was him and Eaton and everybody, Dave Taylor, thought it was great. But we could not take that assumption when it came to the NWO. So yeah, we didn't hear anything except well after the fact that Hogan thought it was funny. Hogan actually, I think Nova got a picture with Hogan at a convention doing the poses or the mirror thing, like the doink thing. We really wanted to have a photo op. I mean, it's pie in the sky theory of everybody from the BWO and the NWO together for a photo shoot. That never happened.
Did anyone not in that group that I mentioned, did anybody else mention the BWO to you while you were over there? Or mention, oh, so-and-so might not like this or love it, one way or the other when you're in WCW?
No, because I think at that point, the people that did see it just heard about it because it was their character. But outside of that, we were Raven and Stevie Richards, and most people never even heard of us from ECW. They were in the WCW bubble. So I'm thinking about it. You're working. You're not, let's watch wrestling and let's see what's going on. And obviously during the Monday Night Wars, WCW had WWF on at the time. WWF had it was a minute by minute trying to figure out. And that was kind of crazy and fun at the same time, because I think sometimes they would switch the format based off of what they saw, and they'd switch matches last second to throw something out there to try to beat the quarter hour.
You never had a run-in with Baron von Raschke then?
No, I didn't. I did have a run-in with Colonel De Beers, but we never did the Colonel. We did Colonel Domini.
Oh, did you?
He did Colonel Domini a couple times, yeah.
Just one more thing about Kevin and Scott. Did they ever ask for residuals, even as a joke?
I had offered to take Kevin out to dinner one time. Scott was getting to the point where Scott can be like, all right, it's too much, man. 24/7, stop. You know what I mean? You try not to sell for it, but I did offer to I think I made a mistake one time of offering Kev a BWO t-shirt. And he goes, you really think I want to beat? I was like, no, I do not. And I regret saying. He laughed. I was like, yeah, it's kind of how's dinner?
Yeah. The Big Mac or...
Oh, yeah, at the time. Yeah, at the time. It was Wendy's buffet with the Ziploc bags to take to go.
Okay, let's get to what everybody wants to know. The Raven feud. So, you debut on WCW television. This is Nitro, July 7th in Memphis, interrupting Iron Mike Tenay, trying to get answers out of Raven, who had just started appearing in the crowd, but was unresponsive to all questions. I don't know if this was like week 2 or week 3 or whatever he was doing, but you only debuted like a week or 2 after he did. So, you run in from ringside and you hop the guardrail. You grab the microphone and you say that Raven won't talk to anybody apart from his dear, close, personal, long-time friends. Which is a shame that Mean Gene wasn't out there when you said that line. You ask Raven if he signed with WCW, which was the hot question at the time, and he gives you a hard slap across the face. Quite hard. I actually wrote verbatim in the script. You then tell Tenay that you told him Raven didn't want to be interviewed, then you shove Tenay. So let's talk about this debut. I've basically just given you a full synopsis of what happened. But what were you told to do before you went out there? Was that verbatim? Did you just sort of just make it up on the fly, as was the way wrestling was in the 90s?
Yeah, there was no script with this. That was something, and that was a Mean Gene thing. That's a great Easter egg because that's exactly why I said it. I was trying to plant a seed to work with Mean Gene, and we talked about that segment where Raven tore up the contract. We had J.J. Dillon and Mean Gene out there, and I was like, this was a bucket list moment for me. So I was trying to put it out in the universe that I really wanted to do something with Gene. The mistake I made, and I have to apologize, which I have already apologized to him, and posthumously, I'm going to do it right now. Scott Hall was doing something with Larry Zbyszko at the time, who was a commentator on Nitro, remember? Mm-hmm. And they were doing an angle. And what I did was, and I understand this, once again, immaturity, getting excited, I put my hands on Mike Tenay. I shoved him, which was not none of that was really rehearsed. But when I shoved the microphone and shoved him away, that was wrong. And people might think, well, that didn't mean anything. It was just kind of a throwaway thing. But you definitely want things to stand out as special. And that muddied the water a little bit with the announcer wrestler angle with Zbyszko and Scott Hall. As a matter of fact, Scott Hall grabbed me, not in a mean way. He goes, what are you doing? He goes, I had a big angle with Zbyszko. You shouldn't put your hands on a... He was coaching me. He just like shook my shoulders. He's like, no, you don't do that. You never put your hands on a non-wrestler unless you're building towards something like that. And I was like, Scott, I'm so sorry. And he was like, no, just don't do that again. We got a good thing going on. I know you didn't know, but for next time, just don't let it happen again. I said, I promise, if something like that even comes up, I'm going to try to clear it. If you're doing something, clear it. And I'm just not going to do it again. And he said, it's cool. He walked away, turned back, and he goes, by the way, Kev's still mad at you. So I was like, okay. Anyway, but dude, that was a hard lesson to learn. And I know the theme of all this is an immature young kid kind of being put out there and failing a lot more than succeeding. That's why, and I've mentioned it multitude of times, and I will in the future, these kids are getting 6-7 figure deals in their 20s to be on TV and pay-per-view. We got to give them a little bit of grace. It is a crazy high pressure situation for people that are really, really young to handle all that. So I didn't handle it well, and I wasn't even making a ton of money. So I give them a lot of credit.
Did Raven hit you hard? Because he seemed to always hit you hard.
He was taking liberties.
Yeah. Right, let's go to the Clash of Champions. This is 34. It isn't the one that you and Raven would wrestle on. So, July 12th, Raven cryptically talks about being or not being Diamond Dallas Page's tag team partner in an upcoming match. If it's the one I'm thinking of, the Giant, Big Show, ends up being his tag partner. Anyway, you are then stood in the background. And 2 days later on WCW Nitro with you in the background once again, Raven, and this is all in the crowd, by the way, you sat front row and Mean Gene's interviewing. Raven says his only announcement is that there is no announcement. And then you say, hey boss, you told me if I sign with WCW. And then Raven cuts you off. Raven spits in your face and pushes you over. All the while Gene Okerlund screams, he's abusing him like a child. I mean, it sort of says more wonders, for Gene Okerlund's upbringing than anything else on that one. But what was the story explained? Well, you told me if I sign with WCW. So obviously you're laying out the seeds of something to be explained later that I don't know if ever was. But what were you getting at?
Wait a minute, are you talking about this is the one I was just talking about, the bucket list segment with JJ, Gene?
No. There's another one with JJ.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember this one. No. I remember the one where I said I got him a rental car with a cassette tape in it and everything for the long drives. He's making almost as much money as me. That was my thing. No, I know there was multitude of ones or multiple ones. I don't remember that one because he spit in my face on that one and then pie-faced me and tearing the contract up before that.
All right, so we had to take out 6 or 7 minutes there so Stevie could watch that bit of an interview that he had no memory of, apparently.
But I did have the chronological order, right? Where the one where he spit on me and I blocked the punch was right before the Clash of Champions match. This one we just watched for Patreon, there's like 3 or 4 watch-alongs baked into one compilation right now, was the one where Raven, using Mean Gene's terms, abused me like a child, and you get a kick out of that.
Well, so did the child, apparently. Right, so what did you mean then? Have you got any memories of the story that was going, hey, if you told me if I signed with WCW, and then he cuts you off? So I'm wondering if there's like a little Easter egg or some kind of story that was never explained that you remember now.
No, this was just, I think we were only buying time until he became, obviously he signed his deal. It wasn't a legitimate thing. Sometimes it is in wrestling where they're trying to get you to sign right up to the last minute and pushing you. I think Punk was a little bit closer than most had been when he was leaving the company with the title. He had signed the contract before Money in the Bank, but it wasn't a long time before that. So it really was kind of reality-based TV. With Raven, he did sign before he debuted, and then all this was a storyline. I really don't think, he was getting more over than I think they counted on, even early on. And they just didn't know what to do with him at that point.
Let's go to the Clash of the Champions. So this would continue for weeks after the fact, but this would be your 3rd match with WCW because you would wrestle Scotty Riggs, defeat Scotty Riggs. He had the boo-boo face, if I'm rightly remembering, that he was doing the job, I guess, as you would say, in wrestling. And then you would face Raven. Clash of the Champions 35, the very, very last Clash of the Champions at the Municipal Auditorium, Nashville, Tennessee. Now, this is one of the matches that we watch for the Patreon exclusive types. So go to the Stevie Richards Show Patreon if you want to see Stevie sort of relive it in real time, including the pain he was in with his neck. And talk about what sort of led to this match, because you weren't, I guess, anticipating you'd be wrestling this early. Now you are wrestling this early. You can already tell your body's not taking it, but that's more for the Patreon, I guess. For this, where did you see the creative going? And did you already know at the time that Raven was unhappy, sort of reliving 1995, when apparently he wanted to do something new? And what about you as well at the same time?
He never looked very happy to be paired up with me anyway, even in the ECW. So it was very much personally a clash of 2 very different personalities. I spoke about it before. He got somebody that has a lot more life experience than Raven. It's a lot more ingrained into certain things than an immature, like real life clueless putz in ECW that doesn't understand and learns everything the hard way. Even at 53, I seem to learn a lot of things the hard way. But looking at this, this is my confusion. If you didn't want to put the act back together again, why did you even pitch me? Because it was Raven playing that role. And obviously I was going to serve a purpose to protect his gimmick, to protect him from doing the jobs, protect him especially from doing jobs and taking bumps and any physicality, to make his character have the mystique that it deserved to have in WCW. Now, Raven wanted to surround himself with more malleable characters and people and human beings that would listen to what him and Paige and other people told him to do. I was a little bit more the way of getting compliments from the boys and working with them, especially on those worldwide tapings. And a compliment from Bischoff, I think, kind of put, this was my speculation, put Raven's ears up. Oh, you're not going to take this kid from me. I need him to do whatever. But Raven was not happy with that. Perry Saturn also was somebody Raven wanted in the flock. So there was all these things going on. And I can't quite put a kind of like A, B, C, D, the order of events or anything. It was just every week was some kind of like butting of heads with Raven and myself. Then this match at Clash of Champions came up. And I was not sure. But dude, look at it this way. I'm going to be on national TV. I'm going to be on, Clash of Champions was a big deal. I remember the first one with the draw between Flair and Sting. I remember all the awesome matches I saw on Clash of Champions. So from a wrestling fan or a Mark perspective, I'm like, I'm going to be on Clash of the Champions. And little did I know that I was going to be responsible for killing Clash of Champions. So, man, I had it was like a bucket list thing, I guess, in a lot of ways that I didn't even know. So as we were talking the match over, or as it was leading up to that night to talk the match over, I knew that, like, wow, this was not going to be anything that is going to serve me at all, or I'm not going to be able to, how can I put it? This is going to be a big regression. It was already a regression going back to the character, but now I'm going to be knocked down a few rungs even more, because I knew, I wasn't sure until I said to Scotty Raven, when he said, here's the match, here's what we're going to do, basically a squash, I'll give you a little bit here and there. I said, I understand that part, but basically, I stood up to you. We had this match. You're squashing me. I understand where you're at and where I'm at. But how are the fans ever going to believe in me if I stand up to you again or stand up to you again? I'm not going to use the exact terminology. There's a lot of swearing and cursing. But basically, he goes, the only reason you were brought here and brought into WCW was to be my $85,000 a year job boy, curse word, swear word, curse word, swear word. Shut your effing mouth and just do your job, or I'm going to get you fired. His exact words were, I'm going to talk to Paige, he's going to talk to Bischoff, and I'm going to get you fired. And that's what it was left at. Now, Raven and I, let's put this in context. Maybe present day, Raven and I are not on speaking terms, are not on super friendly terms, but we reconciled and more after that during WWF, WWE, even later on, we became friendly. Raven's always going to be Raven. I'm always going to be me. He's going to have his personality. I'm going to have mine. They're never going to jive completely up. We're not going to be best friends that go out to dinner all the time, but there was years and years after that where Raven and I were on very friendly terms and put that behind us. So let's talk about that in present time, that we squashed all the beef from back then and created new ones.
How do you think the match went in the end? Because we just watched it for the Patreon.
Well, I definitely could have did a better job. I think Raven did an excellent job. Raven got over, fans got on their feet. They loved the fact that he got the DDT. You even asked, he goes, you asked Dorn, and you're like, who's the baby face? I said, well, I'm supposed to be, but they're cheering Raven. I mean, they want Raven to win that match.
Yeah, did you think the creative, because obviously it's WCW and they weren't really known, apart from Hogan and Sting, they're not really known at this time for, taking their time with storylines. Do you think it was a bit of a quick turnaround? Because, Raven establishes domination over you several weeks in a row, then this match, then you stand up to him, and then this match, and then later on you're teaming up with him. So it's and we'll talk about this in a minute as well. There are matches where, or we can talk about now. There's the Randy Savage match where he attacked you afterwards. There's the Damien 666 match, which is before the Savage match, where he attacks Damien, And then he attacks you. I don't know if it's after a Dallas Page
after the
match or
Page
whatever.
match, after
Yeah.
the Page match also. To me, that wasn't bad. You know why? You're confused and you're kind of interested and you're intrigued by it's an abusive relationship. It's kind of like a big brother, little brother thing. Like, I can beat him up all day long, but don't you beat up my little brother. That's my little brother. That kind of made, out of everything, that kind of made the most amount of sense. Now, after the Clash of Champions, and this is where the injury to my neck started to fester up, the immaturity, the emotionality or the emotional decisions that could come going back to ECW, because it was kind of laid out to me by Raven. He hinted and then he kind of put it in my face a few times. This is the beginning of the end for you here in WCW. Like, I'm outliving my usefulness because now Sick Boy, Kidman, Perry, Hammer, these people start to come in. He wanted Riggs. That's why we had the match, because he wanted it to get to the point where Riggs would be blinded in one eye, have the patch, be repackaged, and be part of the flock. You saw the seeds being planted with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. So in an interview that Raven gave that I saw, I don't know if it was, what are your memories of? You know, one of those kind of interviews. He says that he didn't want Scotty Riggs in the flock. So he's flipped. So he told you he did want him, and then he said in this interview he didn't want Scotty Riggs. He said the only people he wanted. I'll save that actually for a minute, but apparently.
Let me stop you right there. I think he told Scotty he wanted him, but it might have been because might as well go along with it. So I'm assuming that Scotty Riggs was part of the birthday club with Paige and part of that whole group. That Paige was trying to politic to get him into the flock.
The birthday club question and answer is going to be next week as well, so that'll be interesting to discuss. Once again, with the contract, so we're talking weeks after the Clash, you turn up, try and give a contract and try and get Raven to sign it, and then once again he spits in your face and then you stop punching and etc. I'm going to move on to a couple of different things after this, but what were you two doing on house shows at this point? Were there practically no house shows still?
No, I don't recall there being more than one handful of house shows, if any. There might have been in like a Duluth or a Roswell or something in the Georgia area, which was the stronghold at the time for WCW. I don't remember. Might have been Mississippi. There was a house show, possibly.
Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, you wrestle Scotty Riggs. That's your last match recorded that we know of in WCW, 4th of November.
House show?
House show.
I don't remember that. I really don't. Today, CTE, you got me. I don't recall that, but I do recall that after that Clash of Champions thing, and there was no hope. I was looking around saying, okay, if I'm on my way out of this thing, and obviously I'm being pushed out of the flock, can I latch on to Kevin Nash? Can I redo the big Stevie Cole thing? Can I do something with somebody else? Can I go away and come back? Can I get the surgery? There's all these different fluid kind of thoughts that there's no predictable outcome. It's just really a day-to-day thing. And my neck is getting worse, and I'm starting to have conversations with Terry Taylor about it. I'm like, man, my neck is I'm really starting to feel it. So all this different inside and outside the ring stuff by the way, I keep repeating it. A young guy in his 20s without a clue, immature, not having proper business sense or perspective. What do? I'm basically in full reactionary mode of what's going on around me.
What was, assuming there was ever going to be a full, proper conclusion to this story, what was it going to be, to the best of your knowledge?
I had no clue.
It sort of just ended, really, didn't it? I mean, it didn't seem to be like a big blow-off. That, you know,
oh, you mean with
warranted.
me? I left WCW. I was still kind of part of the flock, but you could see them putting new, fresher faces in there, and me being, even with the seating, usually I would sit right next to Raven, but then I would sit back 1 to 2 rows back, and you have Perry next to him. Then Kim, I'd be very much in the background, and then I started Like, dude, I got to make up some signs. I made up the signs like Disco still lives with his mom and dad or whatever and all that stuff, or Disco versus Jacqueline, female versus female, stuff like that. I was trying anything I could do to get myself noticed because they started putting me, dude, for all I know, I would end up in like up there with Sting in the rafters soon. By the way, we did it. We wanted to do a pre-tape, and I don't know if we actually did it. I think this is where you don't know if you did it or didn't do it, but you wanted to. I kept saying that like Sting or Raven was cutting a promo alluding to Sting because he wanted to work Sting. And I was like, Sting gets a duck. Why can't we get a duck? I want a duck.
Why? I've already forgotten what I was going to say. Yeah, okay, right. So, like, Raven's unhappy with, rehashing something from 2 years ago. You say in this show that, you're uncomfortable, or you would have been uncomfortable being the BWO version of Stevie or a version of that because you were too young at the time, that you didn't think you could carry it off at that point in your career. So if Raven's unhappy with, one, he's the one who suggested it, we figure, to Terry Taylor, Kevin Sullivan, whatever. But two, then he's doing the exact same thing with the Flock. It's the exact rehash of the Nest, of Raven's Nest in ECW, just with some different faces. So why was he so gung-ho to do that, and yet complaining elsewhere?
Well, I think because this is just my speculation. This has nothing to do with the in-ring stuff or the presentation of the character. He could boss those guys around a little bit better. Him and Paige together, they had more of a power play. Plus, if you notice any Raven match, and one of the best ones, I think the best match, and we can talk about that and watch that for Patreon, the best match Goldberg ever had outside of maybe Hogan was against Raven when he won the U.S. title. You got to give Raven credit for that, a lot of the credit. But look at the ending. What was it? It was the Keystone Cops of everybody just bumping for Goldberg so Raven could take less bumps and come in and boom. That's what he wanted. He wanted malleable characters that could just be legitimate roadblocks and bump dummies for Raven. And that's what they were.
Right. Next week, we're going to be talking about Hulk Hogan and Raven, because that's its own topic in itself, which I think we might have talked about on WSI.
We talked about the video game cover and Raven.
Oh, yeah, we're going to be talking about that. That's all going to be coming next week, so don't worry, there is going to be more Raven stuff. There's going to be WCW stuff happening next week as well. But for this episode, I wanted to discuss the Flock itself. Now, I don't know if you know all of these guys. You were in the Flock for a few weeks with some of them, and, I guess you've got some idea of what to offer as an opinion on them, but I'm going to give them in order that Wikipedia writes them. So, I don't know if you want to give a thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, of a thumbs down as far as like what they brought to the Flock, or if you thought they were a good member or not. We'll forego Raven, we'll forego Dancing Stevie, and we're going to go to the rest of them. And first up is Hammer. Van Hammer. He was with WCW, it seemed, for years, mostly undercard after they figured out he couldn't wrestle. And then he was, like the fake rock and roller guy, heavy metal guy. And then when he came back, he was almost like a hippie with a pierced nipple.
Yeah, he was almost like the Mike Awesome gimmick with the school bus.
Why the school bus? Well, you mean he like landed and slipped off?
No, I'm just saying that was part of his gimmick, was the big Partridge Family school bus during that match. What was it? He liked the big women and stuff like that. What was... He was
the fat chick Thriller, Mike Awesome.
That's what he was. That's what he was. So, all right, you want to start with Hammer. Now, I'm going to talk about a lot of these people that were in the Flock. They passed the Vince McMahon eye test. They really do. Hammer's definitely one of those guys walking through an airport that's larger than life. So, and it's definitely all these insertions. I wouldn't say placements because they were inserted. They were forced into the Flock politically because of Paige, because of the Paige being friends with Bischoff, because of the political atmosphere of WCW. It was literally, this was like all friends wrestling. So Hammer was definitely somebody that had the look. I don't know about the attitude because I heard stories, especially that party with Regal headbutting him. No, I'm just saying maybe he had a bad attitude back then, and that really limited him because if you took one look at him, sure, he was limited, but he looked like a WWE. And I can't believe that WWE wouldn't look at a guy like that and go, we can do something with him. It was very weird that a guy like that had never lived up to the perceived potential of the look. And in the flock, this was weird too, because Hammer was also, these big guys were also bump dummies for Raven, where he's the giant. So I think that was a disconnect right there too. A lot of these guys, I can't give a thumbs up or thumbs down because they were all just middle of the road bodies to protect Raven's character.
We'll put evaluating then. Next up, Horace Hogan. Now, are you saying that Horace Hogan was politically connected in WCW?
I'm speculating. Pure speculation. I don't know. It could just be happenstance with the last name Hogan that he might have had a job there, because I've heard a rumor that there was another young up-and-comer named Hogan in WCW that may have. Now, here's the thing. Hogan might not have ever said a word. He might not have politicked for his nephew, but it was done, right? It didn't need to be said. Once again, I think Horace Hogan passes the airport eye test. It's very odd. He's a big dude.
Any opinions?
He could have been a stunt double in the Mars Attacks movie too, with that head.
Yes, he has got quite a cranium on him. That is absolutely sure. I said this in a video that hasn't come out yet. I said the only thing that... Yes.
I just had to say this. I believe, knowing Raven, and it may have been said, and it's very, very plausible, this was a way to get in the good graces of Hogan.
Ooh.
I believe Raven did it for a purpose and agreed to it way too easy to friends close, enemies closer type thing. It's very, very plausible.
Next up, I mean, have you met him properly? All right guy? I mean, we'll have to have his personal thing, a personal story if you've got one with him.
No personal stories except hello and goodbye. There was guys in WCW locker rooms that were loud, boisterous, had to let everybody know they were great. Horace never said, I'm Hogan's nephew, I don't want to do a job. I mean, I think he was just happy to be there. He probably knew exactly why he was there, but also at the same time trying to make his own little mark in the business, which is kind of impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was in FMW for years beforehand. I think he worked Japan for a few years prior.
He did go to Japan after the WCW run.
Yeah. No, beforehand as well. I mean, he wasn't a novice when he got to WCW, I don't think. But
so he did try to pay his dues. You got to give him credit.
Chris Karrion.
Oh, God. I mean, this is also a Diamond Dallas Page, but also I think Raven knew Karrion. Way too talented to be in the flock. How's that? And that did come through in later years. Way too talented, way too gifted of a worker. A little bit too much, maybe ahead of his time for being like, I think Karrion, with the right presentation in present day, could have been a Seth Rollins. Think about the styles. His style was way too up there for an American style wrestler. The culture had to catch up to it. Karrion would have fit in a lot better with the cruiserweights and with the lucha guys, but he was way too big to be one of those. So he was in the worst spot possible. Yeah, definitely. He was definitely somebody thumbs up for anything he did, but he was well beyond and too good to be in the flock.
He was Mortis. Didn't he go from Mortis to Flock? Or did he go from Flock to Mortis? I can't remember which way it was. But anyway.
I think he went Mortis to Flock because this was also Glacier was kind of on the back end during the Flock, I think, during that timeline.
Yeah, that sounds right. Next up, Billy Kidman, or just Kidman at the time. He was doing a homeless, maybe addict kind of thing where he constantly scratched. But I'll tell you what, as a kid watching that, Kidman was one of the standouts for me.
He was, because the character, the drastic change from the boy band type look, the aw shucks next door neighbor kid, to basically a drug addict that itches all the time and has withdrawals. And renaming the Shooting Star Press to fit the gimmick was the 7-year itch.
7-year itch.
Can't get much better than that. It just takes a little bit of a tweak and a new coat of paint and a new name for a finish, and we're off to the races. But I dare say Kidman being in the flock should have been a temporary thing, and then he went off on his own because I think Kidman's right there with Karrion. Way too good to be a bump dummy for Raven.
Lodi, who would, I guess, steal your gimmick of holding signs up.
The best fit. The Lodi was the best upgrade from a dancing Stevie Lackey. The best accessory for Raven. Lodi was probably the standout that made the most amount of sense, and for his limited ability at the time to just bump and be a roadblock for Raven. So he was the best one out of the bunch.
Reese, aka Ron Reese.
Didn't Jim Cornette say one time about this, like 7'2" guy that couldn't get over, as he described it? There was an analogy he used, like, you can't get the 7'2" giant over. You know what I mean? Like, he was another guy that just bumped. Like, I could see, like, Reese and Goldberg having a little bit of an angle or a program during that time, but basically he fed in during the U.S. title match, took the jackhammer, and he was it. I mean, he's most famous, and I heard he's an incredibly nice guy, so nothing personal. His claim to fame is him and the Giant humping Hulk Hogan at the end of Nitro.
Mm-hmm. The Yeti. And then wasn't he like Super Giant Ninja at one point with Sonny Ono? Very briefly, yeah.
I believe so. So,
what do you think
that's not Reese's fault. That's a creative decision. That's creative suicide right there. Oops, don't flag us.
What do you think of him in the flock then? Because as you said, Raven was the Giant in the flock. But then you've got an actual Giant who they never used.
I mean, if you can't, Van Halen, now you have two Giants in the flock taking bumps for the small guy. No, not a fit. I mean, and that's for Reese's benefit and the flock's benefit as well.
Scotty Riggs, or at this time, Riggs. Get me Riggs. You know the film.
No, I don't.
Oh,
Sorry.
You don't? Lethal Weapon.
Oh, that's right. The South African diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity, yeah.
So I'm just looking around to see if I'm standing on plastic. Remember that?
Of course I do. Riggs then, he had one eye. So he was a freak like all the others, and that's why he joined.
Well, I think him and Kidman would have made a hell of a tag team. From going from that and being teamed up, they are the most traumatic changes in gimmicks, from American males like this to just sullen eye patch Scotty Riggs. I think Riggs was a great fit, but also in a way too good for the flock. This is where, in hindsight, the rehash of the nest to the flock, nobody wanted it, but everybody became a part of it. Like the guy who was bringing in the recruit people didn't want the flock, but he kept going to recruit people for the flock.
Perry Saturn, the man who doesn't agree with you on anything.
I think he was a great fit.
Do you know, in all seriousness, I thought Perry was great in it. I really enjoyed
him and Perry became very good friends and very tight. So it translated on TV. And Perry got over. With that gimmick. It was awesome.
He did, though. I can never tell if you're being facetious at this point, doing the opposite.
No, I'm saying it. I just want to disagree with me, but Perry got himself over. Perry had a great look to him. Perry could work. Rings of Saturn. All that stuff was awesome. You know? And he and Raven, I could see being that once again, being pushed out. And that's fine, you know?
And the last one on this list, Sick Boy.
I could never get a read on Sick Boy, but once again, Sick Boy, Hammer, and Reese, physically or whatever, they could be different heights and everything, but you essentially look like three of the same character. The same jeans, flannel around the waist, sullen look, deadpan. How many of the same can you have in the group? I never seen much of an improvement with him throughout the entire time that we were there. I know he had something after the flock, but just nothing, never translated.
So Raven, for
You
whatever
were a
reason,
little bit harsher on him than I was.
yeah, in the scripts, Patreon only. For whatever reason, Raven handpicked Sick Boy. Like, the only people he handpicked was Sick Boy and Saturn. Saturn makes sense. Sick Boy, basically someone he wanted, somebody that nobody had ever seen before, or would see since, I guess, as well in that sense. But like Sick Boy was not ready at all for this. And I don't. Once again, you said the same thing. He never improved in WCW, but he was one of the two people that Raven really, handpicked for his group, and everybody else was foisted upon him, including Riggs. Whether you believe Raven or you don't believe Raven, I guess in that interview that I saw, as well. What do you think?
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, because I have a theory, speculation. Raven's not immune to be the only worker in wrestling or only person in the world, corporate America, going out to a bar that, if you're a guy trying to meet a girl or girls trying to meet a guy, what do you always want to do when you're in a group of people?
Be the most attractive one.
You want to stand out. You want to be the best of the group. He actively picked people that he knew, even Perry, could not touch his ability, could not be a threat to him. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they tried, all these people could improve 1,000%. But Raven is just that good that he can always rise above them. And I'm not saying I could, but also none of those people except for Perry, who was actually his friend, ever challenged what he put out there except for me.
I'm going to ask you one final question on the flock before I give you this. Raven didn't want Ron Reese because he'd already worked with Hulk Hogan, and he didn't want Billy Kidman because he was a pain to deal with. This is coming from Raven. And Kidman didn't respect the hierarchy, quote unquote. So I guess not deferred to him enough, maybe.
Oh, he didn't. Oh, Kidman must not want to have been in the birthday club. That's what that means. Mm-hmm. Next week.
Next week, that will be explained. Diamond Dallas Page forced Raven to take Van Hammer, and that's according to Raven. I want to know more. I'm just reading the script here. No, forget about all that. Right, the flock then. What was the ideal flock in your opinion?
None.
You never? What, really? You never had the flock?
No, I wouldn't have had the flock in a way. I may have brought myself in with Raven as a temporary accessory to protect him so he didn't get bumped, he didn't do jobs, and then he was off to the races. The Raven character, even with myself, maybe not day one, the Raven character as a loner has a lot more mystique, the introduction of the Raven character. If he was sitting in the crowd alone, mysterious, wouldn't say anything, said a little something, cryptic, the initial vignettes of Raven in his high school, his grade school, the people that abused him, the girl he lost in summer camp. Do you see what I mean? If they started with Raven vignettes and had him alone and then brought me in as his lackey to protect him, that would have been great. And then beat me at Clash of Champions. Raven goes off on his own and he's off to the races, as I would say.
Okay, one more follow-up then, because this is interesting. Why is Raven always trying to build a group around himself, or usually trying to build a group around himself? Because you have the Nest, you have the Flock, you had Deadpool briefly in WCW before Raven left, because that was Insane Clown Posse and Vampiro, I think. In TNA, you had Serotonin. He was part of your group when you were Dr. Stevie in TNA as well. And other group, he's constantly trying to get people around him, I guess, apart from in TNA, when he was then your subordinate when you were Dr. Stevie, because you had the, more steam going.
I still took more bumps than him.
Yes, absolutely. Saying that, and you said, well, the best thing for the Raven character would be to be a complete loner. So why has he always got people around him?
So other people can bump for him.
That'll be it.
So he can protect his body as much as possible. He loves the dog and pony show type stuff. He actually does love the comedy. It's just, with me and him, there were so many differences that it melded together so well. opposites attract. He was, I mean, there's nothing more opposite than when you saw with those two gimmicks together. But from a political nature, he takes less bumps, he doesn't do jobs, and he keeps himself over.
Right. The rest of that is going to be for week 2. So we've got Hulk Hogan and Raven. We've got the Dallas Page Buyers Club, I guess we'll call it, or the birthday thing. There's a lot to talk about in part 2, including some non-Raven stuff and, the pro tapings and all that kind of thing, and some backstage fun and whatever else I can think of to throw in for next week as well. Right, we're going to get to the news. A few different things to mention, and the first thing is Hulk Hogan TMZ documentary that aired pretty late last night as we record this. We record this on a Wednesday. The clip will probably be out on Thursday, and then the full show will be out on Friday, just in case you want to know what happened. But this is fresh in our minds because we both watched it this morning. What are your major takeaways from it? We'll talk about Vince, we'll talk about everything else as well, and how it's paced and rushed out, quite frankly. And not in a bad way, I think they did a pretty good job. But what do you think of the documentary all in all, tone and presentation?
I think 2 words, and what we tried to do with our Hulk Hogan tribute as well, was not ignore any element on the positive nor the negative. I think it was pretty fair and balanced. I mean, you had your quotes, you had other stuff that was kind of out there, and then some stuff that explained the weeks leading up to everything. You talked to Jimmy Hart and other people, but I think it was pretty fair and balanced and addressed the Bubba the Love Sponge stuff, the sex tape, the racist remarks, but also the legacy. I love the fact that they interviewed Mark Henry in detail, and Mark Henry was very fair and balanced as well. I don't think it was a propaganda piece one way or the other. Obviously, it's TMZ. They have an agenda with that. My first thing that I thought, and then when I watched it, I concurred with what you said, that it was thrown together in a way or rushed, had a lot of detail, and they did a good job with it for being so rushed. But there was that part of me at first when I watched the first minute or two, I was like WWE has always been accused of having the tribute in the queue in case someone like Ric Flair, Hogan, or other people pass away. That's what I was afraid of, that this was already predetermined to have all these things already set in motion. But I could tell as they were interviewing people, no, this was truly a reaction after the actual passing away. What were your thoughts?
There was an interesting bit, I don't know, in maybe the first half, where they were interviewing a lot of WWE, current WWE stars, and they were all saying nice things about Hogan. And it was obviously like backstage at a Raw or a SmackDown, where they just had like this colourful cube where they just put people in, say a few words, and then get out kind of thing. The one thing that I had to mention,
type thing.
Yeah, like a quick get in, say your thing, leave. And then the first thing that Charlotte Flair said, because I think she was quoted a couple of times, that Hulk Hogan was the first wrestler to transcend the wrestling business. What? You've never heard of Andre the Giant, never heard of Gorgeous George. Now, if you're going to say internationally, she might have a point with Hulk Hogan there. But, I mean, there have been a number of wrestling stars, Vern Gagne, but a number of wrestling stars that have been national stars or household names, I think, over the years. But Hulk Hogan, obviously, especially with the advent of cable and everything else, and, worldwide distribution of the WWF at the time, Hulk Hogan is the first international household name as far as pro wrestling goes, I think.
Yeah, I think Gorgeous George would be the one that would be coined to be either the first ever sports entertainer in wrestling history and the first one to bring wrestling to primetime TV.
He was one of, so wrestling...
Well, he's featured. He didn't bring it. He was just the face of it after
He was the biggest star. I mean, people... Was it like Bob Dylan or someone said he met Gorgeous George once and said...
Oh, wow.
And he even wrote in his autobiography or gave in an interview, he said, Bob Dylan said once Gorgeous George just came up to me, we were doing a radio interview, and he said something nice to me. He said, keep doing what you're doing, kid. And he said, that was all the encouragement I needed for years. He was a huge star, Gorgeous George, in the day. I mean, like Muhammad Ali would steal from wrestling. Elton John would steal from wrestling, Wrestling was not a niche. But also
Bob Dylan is famous for that 60 Minutes interview where he said, well, I have to go check with the general commander.
Who was that?
Look up that interview. Well, he's alluding that he sold his soul to the devil. I'm serious. There's an interview out there about that. He literally says that because the guy's like, who are you talking about? I think it was Ed Bradley. And he just kind of hinted at that.
Well, if he did, he sold his voice and his ability to
he ended
do
up
good
with a
gigs.
Stevie Richards voice.
Oh, he's played around here so many times. I've never gone because I've heard his gigs are the worst. Anyway, forget about Bob Dylan. We're talking about Hulk Hogan
Yeah.
at this point.
Looks like the devil got a refund, right?
Yeah. I don't know if Bob Dylan sold his entire back catalogue to one of those, multimedia conglomerates for $1 billion or whatever, $1 billion or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, more stuff to come out of this documentary, but the biggest one is Vince McMahon. First interview since he was ousted, or first, official public appearance, really, since he was ousted from WWE a second time after the Janelle Grant non-disclosure agreement accusations and lawsuits came out. What do you think of Vince's head?
Well, which part? I mean,
his hair and his bloated corpse face.
The first thing that I noticed was, because there was a time when I had the home gym that I wanted to put a stenciled thing up on the wall with a very motivational quote, and I was going to get it from Amazon.com. The exact lettering was behind him for 14th and I. That was an Amazon.com special, the stenciled letters. Did you notice that?
I get the feeling it was very rushed and they needed something. Oh, that's on Prime. That'll come next day.
Yeah.
Because I'm surprised that Vince has even got an office for 14th and I, which
it
at this
did
point...
not look like an office. It looked like he went to one of those Regis, rent the office space thing, put it up, and it's done. By the way, Vince, those letters don't come off. So you got to pay you're never getting your deposit back. Every time they cut in close to him, I was just like, eyelids got done, Botox, fillers. My wife knows more showing it. She was like, and then the weird, this is very superficial compared to everything, very whatever. But I was like, Vince McMahon was gray in his late 50s. Now he's got the skunk gray with the black and...
Why did he go into his barbers and say, I've seen a badger's ass on TV. Can you make my hair look just like it, please? Yeah, of course. Not a problem, Mr. McMahon. I'll just dye 90% of it. And then you can have that sort of Sputnik Monroe thing at the front.
Did he look at it and he goes, oh my God, what did you do to my hair? And he goes, sometimes you have to eat crap, pal, and slapped him on the back. Sent him on his way.
I mean, we could talk about Vince. How did you feel seeing Vince still get booked, I guess? I mean, you can do this kind of documentary without Vince. It kind of makes sense too, but it kind of doesn't make sense too. So what do you think about Vince still getting bookings without this lawsuit being resolved?
I literally didn't have one feeling or the other about it, to be honest. I was just like, oh, I thought it'd be during the voiceover for the tribute. We talked about that last week or the week before. But as I look at this, it's not so much that they interviewed Vince. It was the amount of time that took up with FaceTime for Vince, where I was like, we're kind of going into that territory where you can pop your head out of the hole a little bit, do your couple quotes. But Vince might have been the most heavily featured commentator in this. I think he's definitely right up there with Jimmy Hart and with, I can't think of anybody that had, I think he was the most featured guy on there. Did you get that sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But the thing is, he's the headliner. That's why people are really tuning into it, if you're a wrestling fan, is to see what Vince looks like now. Too. Yeah.
This is TMZ.
They're not stupid.
Yeah. TMZ is not going to be like, oh, God, we can't talk to anybody that has allegations against them. That's exactly the people they're going to talk to. Now, this was also, I'm looking at it, like I said, fair and balanced, though, the whole kind of presentation, the whole body of work of this. It was very measured for a TMZ presentation, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I genuinely thought they did a good job. I thought if they really want to muckrake, they'd go on the Brooke Hogan accusations that have come up in the last week.
Yeah, they're located in LA. They're not going to touch the Scientology thing at all.
Yeah.
I already knew that.
I'm going to give you some Vince McMahon. Just before I give the quotes, actually, do you think Vince had an angle to agree to be interviewed for this? Because one, it's sort of the most easy to swallow reason why he'd be back on TV. But two, do you think he's testing the waters for a reaction and see how the public, receive him, basically?
Vince might not be the one solely gauging it, but the people around him. Whatever PR, media, 14th and I, whatever projects are looking to maybe hook up with 14 and I and Vince, they're the ones looking at that. That's what I believe. And really putting 14th and I behind them is an Easter egg to say, I'm still here. This is my media company. And it's kind of planting a seed for that. Did you feel that way?
Oh, yeah, of course. That's why they rushed the Amazon Prime font sticker on the wall.
Dude, you and I think exactly alike. I mean, obviously it's a very somber thing. When I saw that behind him, I'm just like, man, it's so carny. It's just so carny.
I'm going to give you a few quotes from Vince McMahon. You just don't think about someone, a family member or someone that close to you, who you don't think about them passing away. Terry had kicked out, so to speak, of so many surgeries. What are the wrestling people? They can never not put wrestling vernacular, even in a non-wrestling production. He overcame that. It was a tremendous shot. It was a blow to my heart. I don't know if that's poor choice of words there, but I'll continue with the thing.
Well, it's not as bad as when he had the phone call and he goes, "Oh, Roddy's in hell." There you go, and throw the phone.
Did what?
During the A&E thing for Roddy Piper, he goes, "Hey, Roddy, oh, okay, right. Yeah, he's still in hell. See you in hell or something." And then he goes, "Oh, he's not really in hell."
No, he's in Frogtown. Because hell came to Frogtown, of course.
That's true.
Right, another quote. It was unforgivable, and this is about the racist comments. It was unforgivable, and I was like aghast. What happened? And when those things occurred, that's not like him. What in God's name is going on? I copied and pasted this. As soon as it happened, obviously the company didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. We took him out the Hall of Fame. Did you? You just don't do those things, he said.
They did take him out for a short time.
Oh, they actually officially. I just thought they just didn't mention him.
They removed him. Yeah.
I knew he wasn't a racist, he being Hulk Hogan. I've been with him for so many years, he said. He wasn't a racist. He said some racist things, and he should pay for that, and he did. But in the end, I think everyone saw the real Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, and they felt, well, wait a minute, this guy, he doesn't act like a racist. He's not a racist. We all make mistakes. That was a big one, but he wasn't a racist. It's like, you should go on social media for an amount of people who have not forgiven Hulk Hogan over that.
And they did play some of that, too.
Yeah.
On this, yeah.
I don't know if I wasn't aware or had forgotten that he was also recorded when Nick Bollea, his son, was in prison. I'd completely forgotten about those comments.
Well, I didn't see that during the thing. The thing that I was referring to is they were sitting there trying to put together a media strategy to have something out of the accident. Remember I talked about that. This was brand new to me. I never heard or saw those tapes of Hogan saying that to Nick.
The thing with Hogan, people keep saying he's got a complicated legacy, but I don't think people, and it is fair to say, and people want to say, poor choice of words again, black or white, good or bad kind of thing. But the fact is that he's very complicated as a person, and even more complicated since he's passed away. And one of those things, well, many years ago, this reminded me because he was talking to Nick Bollea in jail, and the reason he was in jail, or prison, either way, there's no difference here. Jail and prison are the same thing over here. I know that's not the case in the States. But
well, I don't want to be in either.
No, absolutely not. But like at one point he tried to say that, the guy, the lad that Nick had paralyzed in this car crash, and then Hogan at the time, and keep in mind this is in the dark days when he was making all these comments, was trying to insinuate it was some kind of cosmic karma against the guy who ended up, badly injured. And I was like, Hulk, you can just see him just crapping on his legacy time and again with these just like absolutely reprehensible things to say. Even at your darkest hour, you wouldn't convincing himself of these things more than anybody else. But that one to me was a real, you can't forget something like that.
Well, what happens is you get too big for your britches. You get so big and so popular and so over, as we see, there's a wrestling term. You're so popular that you think you can't be hurt by anything you say or do. That people are going to love you. And in a way, people still love the legacy of the character Hulk Hogan, not the person Terry Bollea. I think that's what we're trying to do, or TMZ was trying to do with that presentation, is separate the good that the character did from the bad that the human being may have done. I think that I'm going to stand by what I may have said before, or at least insinuated. That reality show destroyed this entire family, or brought out what was already there.
It did a pretty good job of saying Terry Bollea, the person, has done some really bad things. Terry Bollea, the person, has done some really great things for people. A lot of people as well. The Hulk Hogan character's done a lot of great things and bad things as well. He's a total dichotomy. He's like 4 separate people rolled into one. It's a very strange person. Now, the documentary very much didn't shy away, once again, from the racism allegations. Vince defended him. Jimmy Hart said it wasn't his real nature and he was drinking and taking a lot of pills during this time period and was out of character for what he would normally say or think or do or rationalise to himself. Eric Bischoff, not in this documentary, told me the same thing when I interviewed him. He said, just a horribly dark time. Once again, this is also not absolving him of any of these things. Mick Foley opined that he doesn't like people trashing his character in death and would prefer people focus on the positive aspects of Hogan's career, which there also are a lot of positive aspects. And then Mark Henry, which in parentheses I put, the only black guy I think they interviewed, said he was hugely disappointed in Hogan when the quotes were made public, the racist comments he made. But he also didn't even bother. Mark didn't try and defend them at all. He just said, look, I was hugely disappointed.
Yeah, but he did offer to try to have some redemption for Hogan, and Hogan said he was advised not to do that or say anything. And Mark was straight up and said, I think that's some bad advice. And I would tend to agree with Mark. When you have Mark Henry, who's, man, you talk about an ambassador and a representative of the business. I mean, Mark is somebody that this business and these promotions have not gotten the mileage out of a Mark Henry, who could have in some ways been on that level if they treated him right from the very beginning. But he offered him a way to redemption and salvation of the Hulk Hogan character and the Terry Bollea as a human being, and Hulk did not take it. And I do believe that might have been a mistake.
Years ago, do you know who else offered the same thing or said it would be a good idea to do a tour, an apology tour, basically?
Titus O'Neil?
No, Booker T.
Oh, Booker. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he actually, I believe, made the same suggestion or even the offer that he'd go on the road with him to try and help rehab his image. And Hulk
That's an amazing, those two guys are amazing for doing that. You can take the easy route and just be mad at the guy, or take the lesson or teach the lesson to more people and help people out. Hogan could have been a bigger role model after doing something like that and doing that. I thought Titus O'Neil, I would have assumed maybe in private, Titus also offered something, because he's definitely an ambassador to every community, black, white, or anywhere else. He's somebody, him and Mark are just incredible outside the ring, the way they serve their communities.
Right. The documentary also focused on the campaigning for Donald Trump and also, and this is very important, the boos in California on the debut episode of WWE Raw on Netflix that Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart waving the American flag received. Have you read what I put here? Because I'd rather you say it and tell me if you agree with me or not.
What do you mean, the origin of the boos? Why they were booing him? Were they booing him for the Donald Trump stuff? Were they booing him for the racist stuff? Was it somewhere in between? Was it a lot of both? Is that kind of what you're inferring?
Yeah, but I think it's more complicated because, the racist stuff came out and he was getting, and, he returns to WWE eventually in 2021 or something. I don't know when he came. It was a good few years, or 2019, who knows. And he was getting mixed reactions. Then, he aligns with Donald Trump very, very publicly, campaigning, on the campaign trail for him after he was assassinated by a would-be assassin that nobody knows anything about still after a year. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Stevie, as you know, but that one's interesting. We want to know more about who that guy was. Anyway, I said on Dutch's show that's out today as we record this Wednesday, it's not one thing why he was booed. It's like a collection of years and years of the racism thing, politics, just being full of crap on interviews for year on end, just being a complete carny and with reckless abandon pretty much. And there's one more thing, but also, like, if you take The Undertaker, he's a big Republican booster. He had Trump on his podcast. He gets cheered everywhere he goes. Everyone knows his political affiliations, or think they do. And he doesn't get booed. There've been other, things of a, controversial nature hovering around wrestlers, and, they sort of overcome it. But with Hulk Hogan, I think it was all those things combined over a course of years and just the constant lies and stuff in interviews. But also, he was the fourth major star on that episode of Raw, after Triple H, The Rock, and John Cena, to be in complete corporate kiss-ass mode of thanking Netflix, isn't this great, ho, 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 look, think of all the dividend shareholders, basically rah-rah speeches. And then Hulk Hogan was the fourth person to go out there with the Netflix T-shirt, and then with the Real American Beer T-shirt, hawking a product or hawking a vision to fans who just wanted to see wrestling. And I think that was it was the confluence, and they're in California, of course. It was just a confluence of all those things, and just Hulk Hogan has burnt through the last of his credibility.
Yeah, I think we definitely, over the years, we've done the many lives of Hulk Hogan, or his multi-part series actually on that, and we did react to that Netflix debut, and we were trying to figure it out then. What you put here makes perfect sense. We're basically talking about Hulk Hogan, Bret Rogers never missed the opportunity to shut the F up. Hogan never did that, and I believe people developed Hulk Hogan fatigue over that, and that particular night was Netflix. They were just tired of it. We want to see wrestling. So they might have been booing to the fact that you're not giving us enough wrestling. Just put some matches on or whatever. And it could be just seeing through the carny act of just trying to always stay relevant. Like a combination of all that, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah, it's tough to cheer that. All those things combined, and I think people just basically saw through it. One more thing, once again, if this was a hit piece, we're sort of including this, the Brooke Hogan allegations. She went on Bubba the Love Sponge's, I don't know if it was a radio show or internet radio show or YouTube
Which
show,
makes it even stranger, that this craziness. To go on there and confide and open up to this guy that, I don't know who's responsible for what with that whole tape and everything, but that's a weird friendship right there.
Tell me about it.
If you want to call it that.
Some alliance of, I don't know what it is. Right. Brooks' contract with Sobe Entertainment. This is a music company label that Hulk Hogan and Brooke, or Hulk Hogan was basically Brooks' manager. I'll do the quick version of it. Was supposedly very controlling, very overbearing on, and oversaw a lot of her or all of her career in the music business, and it didn't really get off the way they were hoping for. Anyway, on this Bubba the Love Sponge thing that he did with Brooke Hogan recently, he revealed that the reason why Sobe Entertainment dropped her without notice really in 2011 was because they hadn't dropped her, is that Hulk and Bubba had conspired together to write a letter from Sobe Entertainment, pretending it was from Sobe, cancelling her contract, and then it was also hinted that Hogan then called up Sobe Entertainment and then said that Brooke had quit to get her away from that thing. I was like, more than the comments he made, more than anything else, that is utterly reprehensible if it's true.
That is amazing in the worst way possible. So basically, he did a wrestling politic move on his own daughter.
Yeah.
Well, but look at the source. Here's the weird part. I have no answers to this. Consider the source. This is Bubba the Love Sponge saying that he did that. Now, could it be true? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? But now Brooke going on this show, I just don't know. Now we're going to get into a lot of ugly looks as we figure out, where does the will go? Where does his wife come into play? Scientology, the daughter. Nick is somewhere in the middle of that. It's just Linda. Now it's going to be the people that really, this is where TMZ can go into TMZ mode and really just have all this stuff. This is where Bubba the Love Sponge gets maybe months or years of content, clicks and views based off of this. So I have no idea. And we don't even know, like, people are talking about cremations and autopsies, and is he cremated or not cremated? It's getting insane already with all this stuff. Not to mention this right here is crazy as well.
Brooke also recently asked her father that if he had to do it all again, would he have had children? Hogan thought about it for a second and went, nope, and walked off.
What?
Yeah, according to Brooke, that's what he said.
Well, this is the same dude that said he didn't go to her wedding because I don't do funerals and weddings, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Funerals are one thing. As a wrestler, we've all had enough funerals to last us lifetimes. A wedding is a slightly happier occasion. Good Lord. I don't mean to But you can't ignore that. You're right. I'm glad TMZ and all this stuff was trying to be fair and balanced with it, because complicated is a word. Like, why would you do these things? Why would you say these things?
Once again, complicated legacy, I think. Any more words on the TMZ documentary? Because also it does cover, a lot of his positives, his start on in the wrestling business, highlights that really weird chest hair that he had the first couple of years. It looked like kind of
The
an
Hart,
upside down
Thunder
dong.
Lips. Thunder Lips. Yeah.
Which is always
Well,
a
was
bit
like
weird.
Terry the Rock Boulder or something, right?
Terry the Hulk. Well, he was Terry the Hulk
Terry the
Boulder.
Hulk.
He was golden, sterling golden. A few different things.
I'm assuming he invented the Rock name first. That's what I was thinking.
You wouldn't put it past him to say that, but no, yeah. Once again, it brushed over a lot of things. It highlighted, the Trump alliance, and it highlighted the racism allegations. Also highlighted his importance to the business as well. So fairly balanced for what it was, for a 40-minute presentation or whatever it was.
And it didn't feel rushed. There was a lot to go through, but it felt like it moved at a pace that you could digest. Now, here's my question. Will WWE just kind of say, okay, we did the tribute, it's over with? Or will WWE make a documentary about Hogan, make DVD and Blu-rays, sell merchandise, honor Hogan with a statue of WrestleMania? Tough spot to be in.
Yeah, especially if you're making DVDs in 2025.
Well, you know what I mean. That's
No,
my
I know what you mean.
53-year-old.
All right, man. Okay, we're going to do a couple
Hey,
of
the
more
power
bits.
goes out here with hurricanes. You need some DVDs and Blu-rays.
Oh, in fairness, I've got like a 700 wallet thing with DVDs. I wouldn't give any away, but I really upset some people, right? Because I threw all the cases away. So now I've just got the discs. And that really rubbed a couple of my friends the wrong way. So I took a picture of all of these cases in my recycling bin and sent it to everybody who I knew it had upset.
That sounds like you.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a couple more bits of news, and then we're going to shut down the show for the week. And Karrion Kross now officially gone from WWE. We talked about this, I don't know, a week and a half ago. Was it on the SummerSlam thing? And you sort of rightly predicted, less than 24 hours after it was more publicly known, that Karrion Kross's and Scarlett Bordeaux's contracts were going to be up. And you saw the way that he was being booked, you saw the way he was beaten at SummerSlam, and you were like, this dude's on the way out. Well, it turns out that he was on the way out, and a lot sooner than most people, I guess, would have thought. As a addendum, not an addendum because this is the beginning of the segment, but you know what I say, as a caveat, some people are still thinking that Karrion Kross will eventually make it back to WWE, or it's one giant work kind of thing, like a Seth Rollins knee injury.
Enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show. Karrion Kross is also actively looking for bookings, or, claiming he's looking for bookings. He's got an email out on his Twitter account and all that kind of thing. Right. First of all, do you think this is all real?
I've tried to think about it in a work sense as to what the payoff would be. What's the payoff? What are you going to do with this character that we talked about it before? Dutch has given his opinion as well. He's been given 3 to 4 different reiterations of this Karrion Kross character, and they've done him no favors on any of them. And this was the most interesting one, with a top merch seller that you're dealing with that should have launched. If there was a time to launch this character and maybe even turn him into Killer Kross once again, it was literally between WrestleMania and SummerSlam. They did nothing. As a matter of fact, he was booked on the decline. He was beaten in, he flew to Saudi Arabia, beaten 7 minutes over there or something like that. SummerSlam beaten 4 minutes or something around that. Very short matches.
8 minutes at SummerSlam, and that includes all the theatrics of Sami Zayn looking at the pipe and then throwing it away, and then beating him clean as a sheet in the ring. And Sami's not been on a winning streak either.
And Sami saying no more, and Kross nodding his head like that's the end. Very strange. So you literally had lightning in a bottle. You had a Zack Ryder situation. It's going to be easy to push this guy. He got himself over, right? No. It's exactly what you don't want to do. And Kross was already, maybe in his mind, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because he started creating these vlogs and these documentary-style videos and doing things. He had his own movie, he has a book coming out, which is out right now, right? August, I believe. Or it's about
is it fighting? I'll find out the name for it.
Yeah.
But,
so you have all these outside things in this crossover promotion, and you let his contract expire. I just don't, maybe I don't get it. How's it going to sell one ticket doing all this stuff that the casual fan, which is what you're trying to get with Netflix, right? And Unreal. It's not for you and I. It's for mom and dad. It's for soccer moms. It's for people that never watch wrestling. How are they going to be interested in this? How's it going to sell one ticket or buy one pay-per-view?
Well, what was interesting about it, it's called Life is Fighting, his book out there, so a free plug for Kevin, which I think is his real name. Or Killer Kross, as he's going to be known again now. But Paul Heyman mentioned him, I think, in an interview with Ariel Helwani, and then his book was mentioned on NXT, I think, the week before his contract ran out, which is what's got people thinking that it's now one giant not true thing to maybe build sympathy for Karrion Kross when he returns or whatnot. But once again, as you say, what's the payoff to this? People are just going to forget him, or do you think? Because there were no chance for, we want Kross at Raw. There was a hashtag kind of, grassroots campaign that was trying to.
But they did it after SummerSlam, and they did the Let's Go Brandon thing where they said, they're saying we want Brock. It was we
want Kross, and Triple H said, "Don't worry, you're going to get Brock. No worries." I don't know if he misheard or intentionally misheard.
No, he didn't mishear anything. Trust me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no. Well, so there's a couple of mentions of his book after all these rumors that his contract isn't going to be renewed. Why?
I know Chris cut to me, and I had a completely confused look on my face because I'm completely confused. You're right. Why would you mention his book, and why in the world would you allow all this other stuff to happen with this documentary, which is up on YouTube? Check it out. It's excellent. If he's coming back, it's still very much a closed ecosystem in WWE. As much as they'd like to say open door, it's because they own AAA. It's because they own Evolve and the WWE ID property for the independents. This is independent of all that. So are you making us anticipate? Are you creating mystique? Or, this is me, are you confusing us to where we don't care? It's like whatever.
So why would he confiscate pro Karrion Kross signs at Raw this past Monday?
There's another wrinkle in the confusion, right? Promote the book, take away the signs, let him have some WWE stuff on his YouTube channel, let him cut that promo after WrestleMania, which everybody thought was going to be the launching pad for Karrion Kross. But no, boom. Vince Russo has said this, and I kind of concur with it. The more time goes by, they are going to make Sami Zayn the WWE champion or the World Heavyweight champion. Because nothing.
Do you have a problem with that?
Do I have a problem? When you look at Karrion Kross, yeah. You look at Karrion Kross, you look at Sami Zayn, who's a wrestler, who walks through an airport, who's even in the ring that looks like they could beat somebody up. And basically, this is what made me think he's gone. Dude, it wasn't even really 50-50 booking. It wasn't a 10 or 12 or 15-minute match where Karrion Kross got a ton of heat on Sami Zayn. They were booking Karrion Kross as a send-off to launch Sami Zayn even further.
I'm going to give you some of the runs that Karrion Kross has had on the main roster. The first two, you can completely say are not his fault. He debuted on Raw. He actually debuted on Main Event, people forget, with no build. He debuted on Raw while still NXT champion. They announced his Raw debut, or his main roster debut proper, I guess you'd say, while the show was going on Twitter. Then he wrestled Jeff Hardy. They were meant to get like 10 minutes. Jeff Hardy was a mid-carder with no steam behind him at that time. Jeff Hardy beat him with 1 minute 40. Gone. That was it. And he cheated. He put his feet on the ropes, and Jeff was the Jeff was the babyface. And here's once again, Karrion Kross was the NXT champion. Jeff Hardy just beat basically the entire NXT roster in under 2 minutes. And he wasn't even, that particularly figured in at all at that time. Then, after a while, he becomes this like weird blood and sand gladiator kind of thing, which also didn't, inspire anything in anybody. And then he got released. A couple of years later, he comes back when Triple H is the creative head again. And then he's given he wrestles Drew, he feuds with Drew. Does he wrestle AJ Styles at the time? I can't remember. He loses all those feuds. Don't, get me wrong. Then the Authors of Pain group and the Final Testament or whatever, and the TikTok thing with the clock and everything, and that didn't land. And then this fourth iteration where he's the devil on the shoulder, embrace the darkness kind of thing, where he's beaten clean every single time and no one embraces the darkness. You can argue, for the most part, that the creative was bad, but there are times when he got TV as well, and I don't know if he didn't make the most of it, or he wasn't feeling the character, or for whatever reason, it didn't click either. But there is several years where something wasn't firing on all cylinders with Karrion Kross. I mean, is that entirely creator's fault?
Well, I think it is creative's fault for the most part. It's never 100%. That you have to take what they give you and make the most out of it, but they keep giving him stuff that is below what he's capable of doing. And dare I say it, those promos where he's interacting with the crowd, where they were up in the concourse and people started cheering when he said the name Killer, that's the stuff there. What they did with Karrion Kross was the number one thing that made him special in TNA was the mystique, the cinematic approach. In WWE, they don't get the Wyatt Six right. They don't get the Bray Wyatt character right. And the Killer Kross gimmick is more closely aligned to that than your standard Jeff Hardy character, WWE character.
Do you know what was wrong? Do you know what it was like? Mordecai.
True.
They had a good idea, but the thing is, they didn't put the production behind it. They did,
they tried to make it a wrestling gimmick instead of a character.
Yeah, exactly. It's like whatever Kevin Kaser, whatever his real name is. They said, right, you are going to play the role of this instead of someone who I guess felt it more. I don't know if that's fair to say. I also want to say this as well, is that he was finally getting over with a subset of the audience, not by anything he was doing on WWE TV. He was just having fun in a hotel room, reacting to something. He was like, oh, should we go rescue this guy? He's probably dead. That got him more popular than 5 years on WWE TV. So that leads me to believe that it is pretty much WWE's fault, and this guy has a personality, and people would gravitate to his natural personality than whatever, pseudo spooky stuff that they're writing for him.
Didn't he do a couple things on social media where he made fun and parodied Sami Zayn?
Mm-hmm.
That got him buried. Sami didn't like that. I know for a fact, in my mind, by that and the order of events and the way this ended, that he shot himself politically in the foot because it hit Sami, who probably has been known to be very sensitive from what I hear, and kind of a mark in some ways, and he didn't like that. Think about it. This might be a theory as well, but when did the Karrion Kross decline start the angle with Sami Zayn finally after a few weeks and had nothing but loss after loss with Sami?
5 years of loss after loss, basically.
No, but this particular snapshot, him trying to book an angle with Sami on social media and ended up getting buried in the angle with Sami Zayn. It's too much smoke not to have fire.
Isn't it kind of refreshing in a way just to have a clean victor, though, even if it's for the worst reasons?
Yeah, I think the angle was just misaligned and mistimed. Sami shouldn't have been put with Kross. Kross shouldn't have been put with Sami.
So, Karrion Kross would say, I believe in his documentary, it's over an hour long, so, I just got a couple of snippets from it, but I believe he said that WWE, he tried to have a conversation about renewing his contract back in January, and they weren't really talking to him until maybe a few weeks before his contract ran out, the week after SummerSlam, which I guess would be the weekend just gone. Why would you even... It's one of those things where you say, well, if it is all, not real and actually, this is all part of a bigger plan kind of thing, why would they do that? Or why would Karrion even say that? I mean, why would he say it either way? I mean, is he not devaluing himself slightly?
This is the thing right now. What you're doing now is you're taking me, you, and everybody else on a ride. We don't know where we're going. We kind of don't even know where we've been at this point. We don't know the origin. We don't know anything. Everything is based on what he put in this documentary. For everything that's been done and every way we've been strung along, here's my question. If this is all a work, if this is all an angle, my number one question is, where do you go from here and how are you going to sell tickets, pay-per-views, merchandise, and make me believe in it? And if it's the got me brother like the Seth Rollins, are people going to feel like not worked in the way like, wow, you took us on a ride, but saying, you tricked us, made us feel like idiots. We had sympathy for you that you got released, and now it's all fake. Just like the Seth Rollins thing. The next person that grabs their knee and folds and they put the X up, it's fake. Am I wrong? You've now done the boy who cried wolf with Seth Rollins. You do the boy who cried wolf with Karrion Kross. Eventually we're going to say, we don't care.
We're going to move on to the last thing we're going to be talking about, Bret Hart. There's quite a few different snippets of interviews he's done over the past week or so, or week and a half, or whatever it is, that have been discussed heavily. Now, we talked about Gunther and Bret Hart's opinions on Chops last week, but there have been more quotes that have come out since, and probably one that we didn't really refer to. Should we get the Hulk Hogan one out the way before I forget? I didn't write that one down.
We should.
Basically had,
but first we should thank Bret. Never stop doing interviews, Bret. Please, for the sake of this channel, please do never stop. Bury me. Please bury me. I would love it.
Right, Hulk Hogan. He was nice to a lot of people, to ask questions of, and this is after Hulk Hogan had died, and Bret went, yep, he, stuck the knife in my back as much as he ever could, and he always held me back, and he was always he was always a blockade or a barrier in my career. I just moved on.
Yeah. And I said something that you groaned at, but I won't say it again.
What did he say?
You said that Bret said
last week.
He's always been a blockade or a roadblock, and I said not anymore.
Right, okay. I saw that video, and I don't remember reacting like that. I think it was, I don't know, because it was a good joke.
Thank you.
That's the kind of thing I would laugh at.
Yeah. Somehow he is still in Bret's way, though. I don't know how.
So, this is a quote that is titled, "Wrestling would be better if." Anyway, a lot of guys give me the courtesy of calling me and asking me, saying, would it be okay if we do this on TV? We want to do this as a sign of respect, but I wanted to ask you first. This is wrestlers, doing Bret moves or moves associated with Bret on television. I don't want to steal your moves without asking. After you retire, it's fair game. They can help themselves to all my moves. I don't need them anymore. I take it as a compliment, and whenever I watch wrestling and I see something that is obviously a salute, I take it as a huge compliment, especially from wrestlers today. They'd all be a lot better off if they copied me more. So it's the last line that ended up getting a lot of press, but, without the context for the most part. What do you think he means by that?
Well, I think that Bret takes great pride. And I know he had been really, really rough, not only on Hogan, but Jake Roberts in these quotes. But basically, Bret prides himself on never, ever, ever hurting anybody, which Jake Roberts had said that Bret always potatoed people, had always hit people pretty heavy. So I think what he's saying is copy my blueprint to work as safe as you can. So the next day you might feel like you're tired, a little sore, but you don't feel like you can't get up in the morning, work out, and have another match. I think that's what he meant.
What do you think of this whole stealing other people's moves kinds of things? Like, okay, so when you're coming up in the 90s, obviously you're never going to do somebody else's finisher or anything like that, but are there levels to this? What if you take somebody's finisher or signature move from another company or from somebody who's retired? What's your opinion on those two? Or what were the locker room rules regarding that back in the day?
Oh, well, you're definitely asking the best person about stealing moves. Stevie Kicks, Stevie Plex, Stevie Bombs, Stevie T, all that stuff. I would say there's a thing that's weird. This is a minefield with moves. if you're going to steal a finish, this is where wrestlers think, well, I stole your finish, but it wasn't a finish. Oh, so now you prostituted my finish out, and now my finish isn't strong anymore. Because the wrestler doing it thinks, I don't do it as good as you, so I can't make it a finish. Very, very good logic. But wrestling is filled with flawed logic, where it's a trap. So, as the guy with Star Wars, it's definitely a trap.
Admiral Akbar.
Locker room stuff is usually err on the side of caution. I'll give my experience. Before I was even told, stop doing the super kick, I ran right up to Shawn Michaels and said, I'm not doing the super kick anymore. That's yours. Walked away. That was the end of it. So there is a respect factor. Now it's sort of this, I mean, every move in the business has been done. Every move has been prostituted, not only at WrestleMania, but every single TV and pay-per-view. So, and I apologize, I'm losing my voice. But at the same time, it just goes with the fact I appreciate kids today will call a Bret Hart and say, any move, hey, can I do this? I get that. But in the end, Bret always says, you should be more like me. So he kind of puts his own foot in his mouth. He Stevie kicks his own face, so to say. The horses left the barn. The work, the kayfabe and all that stuff is essentially dead. And now we are just trying to salvage any suspension of disbelief. The thing that gets, hey, guess what? I don't mind people stealing a safe move that can be done to anybody. I get upset when people try to reinvent the wheel and do something ultimately 10 times more dangerous than a Bret Hart sharpshooter. Hey, what if I do a sharpshooter out of a power bomb? It's coming, trust me.
What about asking for permission? What are the protocols there?
Well, there's a saying about asking for forgiveness and not permission. In this case, ask for permission. Bret's retired. Bret, more than anything, is usually going to say yes. If you ask a veteran that's not wrestling anymore, it's always going to be yes. And also, at the same time, you open yourself up to have said legend like Bret Hart offer advice, advocate for you, and also say he's a fan. It's better to get Bret Hart on your side. But I would dare say Goldberg and Gunther and Hogan, we get way, that's why I said bury me. We get way more press getting buried.
It's funny you mentioned Goldberg. A lot of people stole that spear. I doubt many people asked him for permission, and he shouldn't have given him permission. Jey Uso, we're looking at you. Roman Reigns, Edge.
Did he?
It's one of the worst spears in the world.
Did he give permission?
I don't know. If he did, he shouldn't have done. If they didn't ask him, they should have done, so they got permission denied. Because there's, 3 people who can do a spear? Bron Breakker, Goldberg, and Rhino. That should have basically been limited to them 3.
Well, dare I say, Rhino renamed it the Gore, so that little twist that I really, really like.
Right, this is something else about finishes, and we'll go back to Bret in a second. Back in the 90s, you mentioned Disco Inferno a couple of times. He started doing the stunner, the Stone Cold Stunner, calling it the Chartbuster. Now, yeah, Steve Austin did not invent the stunner. We all know that. He invented the setup with the kick in the gut and everything, but he didn't invent the stunner. But damn it, that jersey should have been retired. No one should do the stunner ever again, because whether it's Disco, John Cena with that weird flying leap stunner he did, or Kevin Owens or anybody else who does it, I don't think it cheapens the move. I think it cheapens the person who, even 25 years later, thinks, well, you're just stealing the move and not even getting a pin from it.
Yeah, I 1,000,000,000% agree with you. You're only damaging your own character. You're only being compared to one of the greatest to ever do it. You'll never do a stunner. It's just like a Hogan leg drop. It is just like a Bret sharpshooter. What are you going to... You do a sharp, it's always you do the sharpshooter in Canada, the people start chanting for Bret. That's not what you want. Leave it where it is. There's plenty of moves to put your spin on it and do it that way. I completely agree with that.
Another one, Bret Hart complained about WWE not giving him a seat. So Bret Hart wasn't given a seat. This is from F4W Online. In an interview that took place at the Vaughan Comic Con this weekend, the WWE Hall of Famer revealed that he was invited to the two-day event, SummerSlam 2025, that took place earlier this month to sit in the crowd. But once he got there, he was told there wasn't a seat for him. Quote, they invited me down, told me they wanted me to be in the crowd, and then they told me once I got there, they told me they didn't have any seats. But I noticed Kevin Nash got a seat. Maybe I finally realised that I don't feel they fully appreciate me, even after Hulk Hogan's pass. I don't know what Hulk Hogan's passing's got to do with it. There's no certain appreciation for anything I did. Is that going to be an oversight on WWE's part, or is that in your opinion, direct diss for some perceived slight that Bret did to them?
No, I mean, we criticize WWE plenty on this show. It has to be an oversight. It has to be a lack of available chairs at that moment. And Bret might have gotten there after Kevin and everybody else. And they might have been like, he might have been like, well, I don't have a chair. Oh, I'm sorry, we ran out of chairs. Let's run and get you one. Did that even happen? That's a strange quote right there. I would have stopped too. You know, maybe I finally realized that I don't feel they fully appreciate me, even after Hulk's death or Hulk's passing. Did you think you'd be like bumped up in the pecking order, or did you get that impression? That's the first impression I got. I don't get it, man. I mean, it could be innocent enough. We've all gone to Comic-Cons. We've all been at autograph signings, conventions, shows, merch tables where there's just not enough chairs. Hey, can you get me a chair? You know, now if he said to the WWE person or somebody at the convention, hey, can you get me a chair? And they said, oh, no, you're not. WWE said no chair for you, Bret Hart. Soup Nazi. So, I mean, are we in Bret Hart territory where it's just like he's so hyper aware and hypersensitive and hyper ready to jump the gun that Bret Hart is going to be disrespected in some way?
My theory is that he was being disrespected. It might have been when he rolled his eyes at Triple H at WrestleMania this year.
Oh, yeah. That? Oh, yeah. This might be a receipt. You might have. Oh, you got me, brother. You might have got me with that. Hey, you know what? Would you or I do that?
I'd roll my eyes.
No. I'd roll my eyes too. And then but you know, if I rolled my eyes and then they didn't give me a seat, I would pop. I'd be like, oh, got me, brother. But you or I, if somebody was swarmy or something like that, I'd be like, well, it'll just be one chair short. We'll get him a chair, but, you know, just. And the thing is, here's the thing. Say they did rib Bret, or they put it out there and they pranked him, or they just kind of knew, let's see if he sells. Vince McMahon belt squat. Here he is selling. Bret never ceases to sell for them, right? Well, and we get a clip out of it, so, I mean, I guess everybody benefits.
Well, the thing is, if it's just at a Comic-Con, he might have just been joking. I mean, when it's written down, you never know.
Well, that's true. Bret has a very dry sense of humor. So I know we went the other end. If Bret smirks and, now if Bret said, well, I guess that's what I get for rolling my eyes at Triple H, then I would say Bret's handling it with good humor. But it's the boy who cried wolf in a way, right? Like 99% of the times, Bret is dead serious, like, that I'm burying this person, and the 1% is like very dry and sarcastic. So what are we supposed to believe?
Well, we've got a week to figure it out. And that'll be a week until our next episode, which is next Friday, which is going to be WCW Part 2. So as a tease, once again, we're going to be having the Dallas Page Birthday Club story, which I do not know what it is. I can't wait to hear that. Raven and Hulk Hogan, bunch of other WCW stuff, as well as some of your questions that you submitted over the past few months, actually. A few WCW accumulated questions that we're going to be bringing in as well. So, until then, everybody, thank you so much for watching. A new clip out every day on the YouTube channel. We're out on YouTube and all podcast platforms as well. It's over to Stevie to take us out and thank the Patreon supporters as well.
All right, my voice is very gone. I'm going to do my best, but I want to thank everybody for watching here on YouTube, please subscribe, click the bell to get notified. Also, comment below. We appreciate all the interaction here at the Stevie Richards Show. And of course, patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Every Monday morning, watch alongs this past week. This Monday, as a matter of fact, a compilation of short match watch alongs and a promo that I didn't know existed on patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Pre-show, which is a show before the show, as well as show notes. We appreciate the support there. It's growing. James is very happy by leaps and bounds. Also my cameo. And also James has List Mania coming very soon.
I haven't even asked about it in 2 weeks. We should, yeah. We should.
Ow. There we go. So, appreciate everybody watching episode 59 of the Stevie Richards Show. By the way, I'm going to review right now, to use a wrestling term. Leave a comment below. Let James and I know if you want us to continue to do review shows, because the SummerSlam review show was very good. Look at James's face right there.
They did great for us. They did great numbers.
If you want to start reviewing these PLEs every month, let us know in the comments. I know I'm groaning too, but we like doing them in the end. Everybody seems to appreciate them, hopefully. Thank you so much for watching episode 59 of the Stevie Richards Show. See you next week for episode 60 of, it hurts too much, sorry, of the Stevie Richards Show. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.